It's Friday, March 14th, 2025. Let's start off as we typically do by letting you know that if you'd like to support our show, it's very easy. All you have to do is go to supportourshow.com, and there you will find a selection of ways that you could support the show. And as I mentioned, I think I've mentioned it in the last couple of shows, but as a reminder, because it is relatively new in terms of the show's now long life, there are commentaries that I'm putting up on the Patreon. Orlando and I are watching movies together and talking about them, including a movie that we'll be talking about a little bit later tonight, which was probably our best commentary so far because of the mix of because of the totality of the bewilderment, humor,
I think,
and analysis.
I think that it depends on what you're looking for. If you like commentaries where people talk a lot of shit and they have fun, I think some of the other movies are good. Whereas the one we reviewed last night, I felt bad because at some point in that movie, I went dead quiet because I was just so shocked by what we were watching.
No, the nice part is there's a little something for everybody. If you idolize Cynthia Rothrock, we have a commentary for that. If you want to hear somebody's bewilderment at how Italians make horror films, we've got one for that. If you want to hear one where we're marveling at female empowerment through the most unlikely source possible, we've got one for that. So yeah, there's a little bit of everything. We're trying to kind of cast a wide net here. There's, like I said, on the Patreon, at any level, including the free level. The only thing that I may have to do with tonight's movie is there's some nudity in it that I don't know if Patreon has a problem with. So I might just blur a couple of scenes. But other than that, it shouldn't be anything out of the ordinary.
Oh, barely any, though. Yeah, I was surprised there was as little as there was. I was expecting some full frontal something at some point.
Yes, actually, that's true. I'm kind of surprised we didn't have more male nudity, frankly, because at a certain point, I thought.
Oh, well, if you're looking for male nudity, I have a review for you tonight.
Oh, good. Well, anyway, so supportourshow.com, and as far as I know, Ozone can still get you 2 months free on Libsyn, so if you would like to use that code, feel free to try it, and if it doesn't work, just let me know. And, that's it as far as show notes, I think. Yeah, that's it. That's it for now. So, I don't have an opener.
Just realized I still have honey in my beard. That's terrible.
Oh.
That's like the worst right there. I'm usually so good about that.
I smelled something. So I wouldn't know.
I smelled something sweet, and I was like, oh, what is that? I was like, that's a really good smell. I'm like, that's the honey in your beard from dinner.
Oh.
No, you don't like it. You never have any kind of well, not straight honey. I won't have straight honey, but there's a place called... I don't like the honey flavor
in... The only thing that I don't mind the flavor of is in graham crackers.
There is a place called Sticky Situations. Sticky Situations? That does honey. And what they do is they mix it with lots of different stuff. So it's like, it's never just honey. But they do like honey butters and things like that. But they do like, apple pie honey butter and like chai honey butter and like all this different.
If the honey's flavor is buried, then sure, I like honey. But
oh my god!
Really,
but they do these. They do these incredible. I mean, I love apple pie. That's kind of a weakness of mine. So they do a really nice apple pie, and a nice pumpkin pie one as well. But they have so many flavors, and I love to put them in my coffee, and I love to put them on toast and things like that. I put them in my coffee every day. and I mean, like the chai butter honey is so good. But tonight I had some apple pie honey, and it is apparently still living in my mustache, which is terrible because I'm usually, like I said, so good about that. You don't have a great deal of facial hair, so you don't really have to worry about that.
Well, Sticky. My problem is I somehow, ice cream, hot fudge always managed to find its way into it, and no matter how little facial hair you have, it's going to get in there.
Listen, you can have no facial hair, and you're going to get hot fudge on your face somewhere.
That's what I'm saying. So
yeah, I have kids.
Do
and
I
they
have the same concern as you? No, but
And when they had no facial hair, well, my daughter still doesn't. But when they had no facial hair, both of them, they still managed to get chocolate everywhere. So, but yeah, the honey stuff. Usually I melt it in my coffee, so it's not a problem. But yes, I have a bit of.
I put maple syrup in my coffee, so.
You know what? It's the same thing for me. Like it's the same kind of, sweet. So.
Yeah, like I said, if I can detect the honey flavor, I don't like it. If I can't, then I couldn't care less. Just like like coconut.
Yeah.
I don't like coconut as a flavor, but if it's infused or it's in the background, then I'm fine.
Oh yeah, you can't taste it at all. Like you get the honey. The honey sweet is there, but it's masked by like whatever other flavors they put in.
Then
so,
I don't. Then sure, I like it.
It's a neat place. Yeah, I think they're a chain. I think there's a few of them. They do olive oil. They're connected. Whoever owns them also owns a place that does like weird olive oils. Which normally I don't give a shit, but then I started trying their weird olive oils, and like it's such a weird thing because like I was just like whatever, it's olive oil. But I tried like a garlic olive oil.
Oh no, that's not true. Yeah, if
I
you get
understand
one that's done
that
well,
now.
It's different. Yeah,
yeah, they had rosemary, a really nice garlic.
I think we had one that was a rosemary olive oil. That was really good. Rosemary is kind of one of those things I like in almost everything.
I had a cayenne olive oil. That was interesting.
Well, that would be for my wife. She likes stuff that has spicy heat to it. I hate anything with any heat in it. So
really, you don't like any spicy whatsoever?
Nope. And I can detect it immediately.
Which is so funny because I've been basically drinking Cholula now for so long that like my base level
loves that. Yeah, so she's like that now too. Stuff that I'm like, I can tell.
Yeah, my base level is all off. Yeah. So the other day, my wife and I went out to dinner, and we all went out to dinner, and they gave us we got chicken with our salad, and they screwed up our chicken. It was supposed to be grilled, and they brought us, and they were like, "Oh, we brought you the blackened chicken by accident," but they're like, "But don't worry, it's not that spicy. It's just a little bit of a kick." And I was like, "Let me try that before you go digging into that." And I responded to it, and I looked at her, and I was like, "You can't eat this." She doesn't like spicy at all either. Yeah. Isn't that funny? I swear, I think people who like spicy food are always doomed to be with people who don't. Like I think it's just like a opposites attract situation in that. So yes, it's funny.
Yeah.
But I've been drinking Cholula now for so long, like on everything. Like I use that. I'll pour like a quarter of a bottle into like soup as like to flavor it. My base level is much higher than I realized. So like today I had little slices of cayenne pepper, and all I could taste was the sweet. And my wife is like, "I'll try one of those," which she regretted. It's like, yeah, and that's the screwed up thing is that when you've raised your minimum of spiciness up, you become bad at telling if things are spicy. Like it's got to have a real kick to it. Yeah.
Yes.
And just to be clear, I don't have an impressive level of spicy control at all. I'm just at that point where like all Cholula is like one step below me. That's it. That's all I've got. I don't need ghost pepper sauce or any of that shit. And that's all the heat I want. I like that level of heat where it's just like a bit of heat. You know, I don't need levels of cayenne pepper in my life that could like burn my pain receptors to death. Have you heard about that?
Oh yes.
Or like they can use like the Caspian. Is it Caspian? It's not Caspian. It's Caspian. I think it is the Casper, whatever it is. The key ingredient in spicy. They've grown a pepper where it's like so intense that they can use that on like an oil from that to literally burn pain receptors for people who have like kind of phantom or continuous pains that can't go away, and it burns. They burn the called the pain receptors and nerves, and they don't come back for like anywhere from 5 to 6 months. I thought that was so neat. So it's nice when there's good news.
Sure.
But I had a few things I wanted to mention. So I finally started watching Stranger Things with my kids. They're finally old enough. And I've never watched it before. I know next to
you've
nothing
never
about
seen
the show.
anything of it?
No, I
Oh.
put it off. It was one of
Oh.
those things where I was like, you know what? I know the age
Wow.
bracket for this, and I was like, I'm going to put this off to watch with my kids. I have
Wow.
4 seasons to watch with them, and I wasn't
Hmm.
sure how thrilled they were going to be about it because my son is not big into like horror elements. My daughter's crazy about it, and
Sure.
yeah, we started watching, and both of them were enthralled. We actually did like a 3 episode back to back over 3 days, which normally we don't. We usually try and like, intersperse lots of different shows to kind of give them a good education in nerdery. But
Yeah.
but no, for 3 nights we just watched that because they were so kind of enthralled with it, and I was like, yeah, this is well done. It's like I never wanted to not watch it. I think what it is that my wife is never interested. So there's a lot of stuff that's like she doesn't want to
Yeah.
watch, but my kids now are at the point where they do, so I'll watch it with them. And yeah, it's very well done. I gotta say, everybody. I mean, I had a brief moment where I was watching the show and I thought, Jesus Christ, it's like Winona Ryder is amazing. I was like, I know that whenever you see her in interviews, there's something very sort of like punch drunk Carrie Fisher about her now.
Yeah.
You notice that? But there's a
Oh,
scene
yes.
within the first 3 episodes where she's trying to talk to the kid and she's basically clinging to a ball of Christmas lights in a cupboard.
Mm-hmm.
And she's acting her fucking ass off. And I was like, holy shit, the Oscar goes to Winona Ryder. I was like, Jesus Christ. I was like, that is a hard thing for someone to be like, okay, I want you to sit in the cupboard now. And I want you to hold on to these Christmas lights. And I want you to imagine this is the only connection you have to your child. Now freak out. Yeah. So it was well done. Plus, it's educational for my kids because my kids at one point were like, I don't understand why she's freaking out. And I looked over at them and I was like, okay, guys. I was like, if one of you went missing, do you understand the degree to which I would freak out? I was like, she's just hanging Christmas lights. I was like,
Yeah.
don't give Will's mom shit. It's like,
Right.
It's Will, right? It's Will's mom.
Yes, Will's mom.
Yeah, it's like don't give Will's mom shit. She's fucking freaking out. It's a healthy response. So, yeah, it's a funny show, I gotta say. But I do think it's funny the degree of freedom in the '80s versus today, and that isn't necessarily.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a TV thing. Just remembering myself, right? Like in the
Yeah.
90s and stuff like that. It's so funny. I said to my wife at one point because she was watching with us, and I was like, the whole idea that they could keep 11 in their basement for days and the mom wouldn't find out. I was like,
Right.
that is a different fucking world
That's
right
a
there.
different era. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be fascinating. It's fascinating that recently I thought to myself how I think sometimes it's easier to tell certain types of stories when you go back in time to pre-internet, pre-iPhone, pre-smartphone eras. Because like I was thinking about this how the creature comes out of the wall type thing.
Mhm.
The wall, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you had an iPhone, but actually this is the counterpart to that. If you had an iPhone, you could record that. But we live in a world where the special effects are so real that would anyone even believe it if they saw it?
Well, that's the trick.
Right? Because if
That's the
tomorrow
trick.
you saw something that somebody posted online and they were like, "My God, there was a spirit coming out of my wall," and you looked at it and you were like, "That's special effects."
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, it would be really hard at this point to prove any kind of magical superstition, response.
No,
period,
there was a small period of time where, because people will say, "Oh, you could always do that. The photographic fakery has always existed," which is true.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It has
Yeah.
always existed. But there was a small period of time where digital cameras were in existence, but computers were not sophisticated enough.
Yeah, you
to
couldn't
make,
mimic reality. Yeah.
It was you could not.
Yeah.
You could not duplicate it in a way that somebody couldn't figure out very quickly.
Yeah.
And in that small slice of time, something like that, and that you could set. There are movies that are set in that time that specifically want to have some version of modern technology, but only so far. You could do
Yeah,
it.
but it's also the lack of interconnectedness. I think that's another thing too. Is that like we live in an age now where everybody's a phone call away.
Yeah,
Whether that
well,
saves
oh,
you
yeah,
or not,
no.
everybody's and so it's like you
course.
have to write a story now that can take place in that environment, or a story that takes into the account that you have to create like a disturbance in the signal, so people can't just.
Well, that's why go in the woods, no signal is the kind of trope.
Yes.
Oh man, I got no bars. At some point in the first 10 to 15 minutes, somebody has to say, "I don't have any bars."
Yeah. Oh, it's a dead zone here. That's so weird. And you're like, "Oh, you're all gonna die." Okay.
Yeah. Well, or that this story cannot possibly survive a cell phone. Yeah. That's what it tells you. Is
Barb.
This whatever.
Poor sweet nerdy Barb.
Yeah.
Yep. So we're like I said, we're 3 episodes in, and they're really enjoying it, and I think it's really well done. So. I know it's not a surprise, but I mean, what's funny to me is that there's still a 5th season supposed to come out, right?
Yes, or 6th season, I think. Is it 6?
Is it? Either way, yeah.
Whatever this one is, it's the final one.
Yeah.
And it's coming out in 3 different parts, which is stupid.
Because it's like long films, right?
Oh yeah, everything now has to be at least 2 parts, and they had to go one bigger and say it was 3 parts, and of course they're like, oh no, it was always bullshit.
But it's not. But it's not episodes. It's like long movies.
It is, but then there's intermissions. So it's like 3 episodes. Then the next 3 episodes come out 3 months later. Then the final 2 episodes are supersized. They come out 4 months because they want you to be subscribed longer.
Yeah, they don't want you to be able to just download. Yeah, but
listen. To me, but
here's the thing.
This is a modern problem because that's the thing. No, modern audiences can't wait because it's so difficult. They say to avoid spoilers online, which it isn't. I hear this. I read this all the time. Like, oh, it's so hard to avoid. No, it's not.
You know what?
Just
listen.
Put in filters.
I know nothing about this show, and I don't avoid spoilers. I just know nothing about it, other than the fact that they used "Running Up That Hill" as like the theme song to one of the seasons.
And that's also because you're not watching it when it's big, and you're not on social media very much, if at all. So
no,
that's
I'm not at all. No.
And that's what I'm saying is. It isn't that tough to avoid them. And by the way, even if you were, you can put word filters in almost every major social media platform saying, don't show me a post that has these words in it. So you can put filters if you really don't want to. You could put, Stranger Things. Filter out these words. Filter out the names, whatever. And then you won't see them. It's not that hard, everybody.
Yeah, the worst part about this is I actually have to pre-spoil some of the episodes for myself. Because I have to know if something is coming that I'm going to have to explain to my kids. So, like, when Will goes missing in the first episode, I had to know that. And I vaguely had some idea from, like, the title of the thing. But I had to kind of prep my kids for that. So they were like, oh, okay. And I'm like, yeah, there's a kid. He goes missing. Just be prepared. And it's like, they're fine as long as they get a little bit of... Because some things still spook them out.
Yeah, okay.
And the idea of a monster basically just taking you away, like, it's a creepy show, man. And
I think you're going to find it's going to be less difficult for them as it goes on.
Oh, I'm sure, but that's the thing is that you get the normalizing effect kicks in. This is the first show like this they've ever seen.
Well, not only that, but in particular.
But I was like, guys, you watched Godzilla King of Monsters. I was like, this is that bad.
And that's the thing is, as it goes on, it becomes more. The first season in particular, and the second to an extent, I think are the scariest for younger viewers because the threat it's not invisible, but it is...
Well, it is kind of invisible because you don't know where it's going to come from. You don't know the rules yet.
Yeah, that's it. That's kind of it, is that you don't know where it is, what it's doing, how it's working, and nobody believes that it's happening. So for a child, that's terrifying, is the idea that you tell an adult something and they don't believe you because there's no evidence of it.
Yes.
As it goes forward, that will go away because you're going to have a giant, like, tentacle monster that everybody's seeing. Like, it's not going to be subtle anymore. And so at that point, I don't think it becomes scary anymore. It loses some of its power. Because
it's very interesting.
There's a gigantic octopoid that is destroying them all. Okay. Everybody knows this now.
Well, it's very interesting you said the thing about not being able to wait, right? So I think I mentioned briefly that I really like the show, was it SAS Heroes, which is Stephen Knight's show about the creation of the SAS in World War II. I think we talked about it because there was an interesting sort of kerfuffle about gay undertones and stuff like that in the first season. I loved the first season. I thought it was a great show. Historically accurate, I don't really know about that. But you know what? I do like fun World War II stories. And I've always found that for me, being an American, I get a lot of the American version of things, whereas people seem to forget that the war was going for a while before the Americans ever got there. And I gotta say, what's amusing is that growing up, a lot of the history that I was taught started at Pearl Harbor. It's almost like there was nothing going on before this. The British needed help, right?
Sure.
Like, so I love the idea, and I mean, like, we get this to some degree with the Sniper Elite game because we haven't even hit D-Day yet in Sniper Elite.
No, we're making sure D-Day can happen.
Yeah, exactly. So like we're on like what the Sniper Elite 5.5, right?
Yeah, basically, yes.
Basically, right? So if you think about that, we're at Sniper Elite 5.5,
I mean,
and we
this
haven't
is kind
even
of a
gotten
parallel story because that.
Well, I know that,
appears
but
in 5. So,
but we haven't even gotten to D-Day. Is what my point is. Like, there's so much more war left. We haven't even gotten to Germany.
oh yeah, and that's the thing is this series could go on for another 5 or 6 games without ever leaving.
Oh yeah,
like 1 or 2 countries.
And hey, listen, and I'll be there.
Oh, me too. I go back to Italy, man. I want to actually be hearing people screaming in Italian. So let's go back. I'm ready.
So
I want to shoot. I want to shoot Mussolini. Why can't I shoot Mussolini?
Well, you know what? You might dig this because the first season of SAS Heroes is about the creation of them when they were in Northern Africa, right? Which is that aspect with Rommel and all that stuff, and that was really interesting. And I love the desert as a setting. It's a weird thing for me. So I thought the show was great. So in season 2, the SAS are going to Italy, and they're kind of the spearhead. Like, they're the ones that are going in ahead to kind of loosen up the barriers before the normal military gets there. But the thing is that it was on one streaming service. I can't remember who it was because we don't have it anymore. But they were on one streaming service, which we only had to watch the show. And then we found out that they switched to a different streaming service. So they're now being put out through, like, MGM Plus, right? And I was like, shit, I don't want to get another streaming service. I was like,
what were they on before?
I don't remember. It was something else.
Right.
Yeah, but it was a different streaming service altogether that we had. But we only had it because we wanted to see this show. So we, of course, got rid of that other one. And then my wife was like, well, we should just start watching them and pay, I guess. And I was like, no. I was like, you know what? Let's wait till they're all out. Because they only do, like, I think, like 7 episodes. I was like, wait till they're all fucking out. Because they also released them over, like, a timetable. I was like, and when they're all out, we'll get the free trial. We'll just watch the whole thing through, like, you know, one every night, and then just be done and walk away and not need to have fucking have a service. And I was perfectly happy with that. Like, I don't get excited about shows, I guess, in a way where it's like, oh my God, I need to see it. I need to see it so bad. I was like, no. I can wait. It's there. It's not going anywhere. Let them all be out. And that's what we did. We waited till they all came out. We jumped on the MGM, like, you know, free week. We watched the whole thing and just fucked off. And yes, I very much enjoyed season 2 of SAS Heroes. It was still very well done. Apparently, I think they filmed Serbia to simulate Italy. But you know what? It looked pretty damn good. It's always fascinating in a show's budget to see how they're going to try to recreate things, you know, because, like, they were recreating Northern Africa during the war in the last season. Now they're recreating Italy during the invasion. And they managed to find, I guess, a lot of little small towns in Serbia that still look like little old towns in Italy. And yeah, it's really well done. The show has some weird direction because in the first season, there were, like, these 3 leads who were the 3 guys that created the SAS. And by the end of the first season, which this is historically accurate, one of them was dead, one of them was in a POW camp, and then the angriest one of them, which is this angry Irishman named Paddy May, who I think you would enjoy this show just to watch Paddy May, because he's basically so furious with the fucking world, and he doesn't want to bow to any kind of authority, but he also, you know, he knows that he's kind of good at being a savage, essentially. So it's an interesting character to watch evolve. But the thing is, the end of the first season, 2 of your leads were gone, and you just had the angriest Irishman but he has a team, and that's the other thing, is that there is a revolving cast of soldiers because he has, like, a whole group of SCS, and people die and people leave, and but I just didn't know how the dynamic was going to work. And what's really funny is in something out of a fucking like soap opera, the one guy who goes to a POW camp, who kind of was the main guy who started the SES, was the commanding officer, whose name was Sterling. His brother showed up to take over SAS, and I was like, that is so convenient. And then I looked it up, and it was like, no, that's exactly what happened. Like, Sterling was in POW camp and basically wrote his brother all about it, and his brother came and took over. And the Sterling basically told his brother, he's like, this is how you have to run Patty May. And I was like, you want him to do what you want him to do? He's like, you gotta be the authority figure that he hates. It's like, so he feels like he's basically spiting you to keep, having success, which is an interesting dynamic. But the weird thing was, so that the character of Sterling, the original guy, he ends up in a POW camp in northern Italy, and he never gets out. I read the history about him. He never gets out. Not till the end of the war. He's in a POW camp. But he tried to escape like a fucking ton of times. So the show is kind of a weird format because you spent most of the time with Patty May and his crew steaming through Italy. But then every now and then you cut back to Sterling trying to escape from this POW camp and all of the weird shit that he does, where it's like he almost goes out a window and then he falls like 20 feet and then they put him in isolation and then he's hiding from the Nazi takeover of the camp in the showers, and then he finds a uniform and he almost walks out of the... I do love that. His guy is so ballsy. At one point he steals a uniform that's left in the shower room where he's hiding, and he basically puts it on and very nearly just walks out of that prison. And I looked up, whenever something fucked up happens, I always look it up to be like, okay, how made up is this? And how much of this is based on reality? And the weird part is, the more fucked up stuff is real. And it's kind of more of like the weird connective tissue that they invented. So at one point, one of the soldiers in the SAS gets taken by the Nazis. And apparently Hitler was so irritated with the SAS that he had a policy of, if you catch any member of the SAS, even if they surrender, you execute them. There's no Geneva conventions for the SOS. That's it. Or the SAS. It's like, you just fucking shoot them right there. And I guess it sounds like some of the German soldiers. So remember we said not all German soldiers were Nazis. Some German soldiers were just German soldiers. Right. Some of them had a problem with this because they saw it and they said, well, this is a bit of tit for tat. I was like, we do this to them, and it's like, aren't they going to do this to us? Right? So at one point, they catch an SAS member, and I guess it was one of the first people they caught. And so the story goes, he was about to be executed, and a German general basically wanted to meet him. So he ended up having dinner that night with a German general who wanted to talk to him about the SAS and what they were like, and the guy says to him, the SAS guy's like, I'm not going to give you any information about them. He's like, I'm not going to give you any kind of classified. And he's like, no. He's like, I don't want anything classified. He goes, I just want to know what your commanding officer's like. What's his personality? You guys, there's a mythology about you guys as these savages. And then, he had and he has a lovely dinner with this guy, and then they smoke cigars by a fire, at which point the general says, hey, he's like, there's been an order that all SAS members are to be executed. He's like, so tomorrow morning, he's like, they're going to kill you. Because if I don't have them kill you, he's like, I will be killed for not following orders. He's like, I'm sorry. He's like, I gave you another day of life because I felt this is wrong. And you're like, okay, this is interesting. So I figured that guy was done for. And yet when they bring him out to execute him, he kicks the shit out of the three guys that that took him out into the woods. And he gets away. And he just starts walking across Italy to get back to the south where his guys are. And all of this so far feels like something out of a bad action movie, right? And then he just happens to wander onto a kind of a luxurious property, still behind enemy lines from what I can find, and he bumps into a British woman that was, I guess, was a friend of his sister's. They used to ride horses together. And he's like, oh my God. He's like, what are you doing here? And she's like, I married an Italian. She's like, we live here. And he's like, holy shit. He's like, you remember who I am? He's like, my sister was so and so, and she's like, yeah. He's like, can you help me? And she took him in and helped him get back to southern Italy, and he gets back to the SAS. And I was like, wow. I was like, that is completely unfucking believable, and yet that's exactly what happened. Like in the show, you see it and you're like, this is bad writing, and then you look it up and you're like, oh no. I was like, this is exactly what happened, which just proves that reality is far weirder and less well written at times than fiction. So I really enjoyed the show. Paddy Mayne is the angriest Irishman who's heading up the SAS, and watching him as the leader of this unit is fascinating because he's almost too angry for his own men. And as time goes on, the PTSD is being to set on these people who've been, I mean, I imagine that some of these people have been worn out for like 2-3 years. So like people are beginning to come apart a little bit at the seams. And part of the dysfunction of this season is the idea that for a while they were allowed to do whatever they wanted in the desert. Nobody was monitoring them. They were told to do things, and they just, as a guerrilla unit, went and did these things. They blew up planes on the field. They killed whoever they wanted to kill from the other side. They basically were like terrorists. And now in Italy, they are told to behave themselves. You can't just shoot anybody. You can't just rob whatever you want. You can't act like monsters. I was like, we're trying, it's I think they said at some point, we're trying to win hearts and minds here, right? And this is a problem because this is not how they operate. And it isn't towards late in the season where Paddy Mayne actually talks to like the general in charge and says, you're not using us right. He's like, you're using a very specific tool. He says it's like you're throwing a handful of gravel at the enemy lines rather than using us as a scalpel behind enemy lines. And at that point, the general seems to finally figure out that these guys are insane, but insanely effective. And they get parachuted behind enemy lines in Italy and just start destroying all the train tracks, randomly killing Nazi troops, and basically like fucking things up behind enemy lines so that it makes it so the Allied forces can move more swiftly and they can't necessarily retreat as easily. So it's an interesting show. It definitely has poetic license, and they even said now there's a big disclaimer in the beginning where they're like, this is not a history lesson. And I like World War II stories, so it works for me. And actually, the end of the second season is D-Day. It's literally them being sent behind enemy lines before D-Day to take down a lot of the enemy defenses so that the invasion can succeed. And my wife and I were like, oh my God, what a cliffhanger. I mean, it's not a cliffhanger because it's historical. So actually, I'd love your angle on this, right? So if the show stopped now, would you be annoyed even though historically you could sit down and read about everything that happened to these people?
If the show ended...
Yeah, so like if they didn't do a third season, right? And the show ends with them parachuting into D-Day, right?
Well,
would it feel like a cliffhanger?
Not if they did it properly.
It's done very well. It's done very well.
Okay, like oh man.
And if you're curious, the thing is, if you're curious,
you remember how I said, as an example, you know how I say in 13th Warrior, when they're being assaulted and he does the prayer.
Yeah.
If they had ended the movie at his prayer and gone to black, it would not have bothered me without having seen the battle. Like that would have been a fine ending for him to do the prayer.
That would have been a ballsy ending right there.
It would, but if you think he looks up, it closes in on his eyes, and then it goes to black. I would have been fine with that. I would have been like, okay, that's a good ending. So if it's done correctly, I don't care about a cliff, especially because, like you said, we know what happened. This is an unresolved story.
You can read about these people,
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
And the cast keeps rotating because the Sterling brother who takes over, he basically gets kicked out at the end of the season because when they're first planning D-Day, they come up with a plan to use the SAS, which is fucking suicide. And Sterling's brother is like, you're going to kill these guys. He's like, that's not going to work. And he basically gives Paddy Mayne classified information so that the two of them can talk to the people in charge and be like, that is not going to work. and it basically gets Sterling's brother kicked out of the SAS, and I think he's demoted to reserve army or something like that afterwards. And I checked the history because I was so curious. Like, does this guy ever come back? They're like, no, he never came back. The people in charge were fucking pissed with him, didn't like what he did, even though he changed their mind, and they were like, you're right, we should do this with the SAS instead, which was more effective. But the fact that he questioned the orders and went around their back, they were like, you're out. So, yeah, the only weird thing in the show is that there is a completely made-up French spy. And I think they did it because there are no women in this show. There are no consistent women in this show. So they created a French spy character who is the... oh, God, she was the alien in Star Trek Beyond with the striped face.
Oh, okay. I don't know who the name, but I know who that is.
But you know the actress. Yeah. So
sure.
and she's great as a character, but she's completely made up. She's a love interest to the Sterling character, and she's kind of around. But the thing is, and she is crucial at times. But yes, she's completely made up. She's no character like that existed, and they just wanted to have, And this is the poetic license where it's like, okay, you're seeing something that's based on history, but there has been, license taken with it to create a good story. And it's very well done. I mean, I love the show Band of Brothers. I don't know if would I put this on par with Band of Brothers? I wouldn't put this on par with Band of Brothers, but I enjoy it in a completely different way, and might watch it the way I watch Band of Brothers like once a year, essentially, and I might watch this again in a year, especially if they complete it. I mean, that's the other thing too, because Band of Brothers, they went all the way from the beginning of the war for this particular unit all the way to the end of the war for them. And if they somehow were able to create this show so that it went all the way through the war, yeah, that would be a completed project, and I'd be happy with it. But yeah, so I just wanted to review it. It is very good. If you like World War II stories, or if you like stories about fucking angry rebels, it is a fun and brutal show, and surprises you, because there's a few times they did shit where I was like, oh, they're totally going to do this, and then it turns and you're like, okay. I was like, there's some humanity left in these people. But it's a different angle, and it shows the way that lateral thinking began to dawn on military minds in World War II. There's always been kind of like they look down on kind of shady thinking. I don't know if you've kind of realized this with history, but like, there's been a kind of this throughout history. They don't like it when people are sneaky. It's considered to be kind of dishonorable, right?
I was going to say there's the idea of honor in war.
Yeah. And World War I was such a bloodbath, and there were a few sneaky things that happened in World War I. But I feel like World War II is when things really, like, the whole total war thing really broke out, and people just started doing, it was the whole whatever we got to do to win the war, right?
Well, when did the Geneva Convention come in? After World War II, right?
Oh no, it's going in World War II. It came in after World War I, I'm pretty sure,
okay.
Yeah.
So that was after the mustard gas and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. And that's the thing, is that, nobody gassed anybody. Well, let me rephrase this. No soldiers were gassed.
Yeah.
They did not use it on the field of battle necessarily. But the Nazis did use it to gas, all the Jews in the camps. And everybody else they thought was, no good. So, so there are Geneva Conventions. I mean, and that's the thing. There are POW camps. And they're very weird to me. Because, like, the main Sterling brother, he is in a POW camp. He's still writing letters back and forth. Like, he's still giving advice to his brother. And, like, I'm kind of sitting there going, okay. I was like, you're still allowed. You're still getting mail. Like, you're still getting care packages. It's like
they're not screening it and reading it and going, oh, okay, this is what he's telling his brother to do.
They must be screening it, because at one point he does say that stuff is being written kind of in code, right? But it's like,
okay, that's what I was getting at. Is he can't just be writing, hey, you know what?
No.
They've got a weak flank over here. Just go that way. Good luck.
They're but he's stuck in the camp. But it's the idea that they're getting mail at all. Like that's an aspect of this that you don't really get into, this idea that, oh shit, there were POW camps and the Germans were honoring the rules in that respect. It isn't until late in the war where things really started to fall apart, where the camps were either abandoned or they kind of death marched them further into Germany, you know. But at this point, like this guy's in this season anyway, he's in an Italian camp. And, you know, they're not treated like great, but they're still getting mail. They're still getting care packages. Like it seems like a normal prison. Not like, you know, a horrendous war prison where everybody is like, you know, 100 guys in a room type of thing. You know what I mean? All freezing to death. It's like people have their own rooms and they're still being fed. You know, it's like it seems more civilized than I expected. Which made me then go and read up about POW camps and how, yeah, early in the war, it's like, yeah, there was a level of honor because soldiers realized they were fighting soldiers. And you know, and it was almost like a game. It's like, well, the game, you know, we're going to keep you from escaping, but we know you're going to try to escape because that's exactly what we would do in your place because we're all soldiers here. You know, and it isn't until you get into this situation where you get the diehard Nazis where it's like, okay, now it's not funny anymore. You know, now we think we're the master race and, you know, we're just going to shoot you. Right? But like, and that's why the differentiation I think is really important between German soldiers and, you know, diehard zealot Nazis. It's a different creature. You know, it's a different type altogether. And even in this show, it's fascinating because at one point, I mean, Patty Mayne is just fucking killing his way through people, just brutally. And when they get to Italy, you can see that he's trying to slow himself down. You can see he's trying to kind of muzzle himself a little bit because he's been told, like, you know, you're going to lose this unit. And at one point they find this, they're having a kind of a gun battle with this one little area that they're trying to take out, like a gun nest. And the one Nazi, well, I don't know if he's a Nazi, he's a German soldier. Basically, he surrenders and he says, you know, my brother is dying. Can you help him, please? My brother's dying. And you kind of sit there like, okay, you guys were having a gunfight a minute ago, and now this guy's surrendered and he wants help. And at first, Patty Mayne is just going to shoot him. And his own guys are like, you're just going to shoot him? They're like, but he's surrendering. He's like, you know, it's over. And then Patty Mayne doesn't shoot him, which you're surprised. And then when they go, Patty Mayne goes past him to the room where the brother is. And the brother is, there's no way to save him. There's a few scenes like this where they've got like people and like their guts are basically coming out of them. I gotta say, like there's two scenes in this show that are extremely graphically well done, and they both hit you like a ton of bricks. And this is one of them, which is the German soldier whose guts are basically coming out of his body. And Patty Mayne looks at him and goes, "This guy's not gonna live." He's like, "This guy is in fucking agony right now, and the only thing we can do is end his misery," which is what they do. And you see it, and you understand exactly what it is without anybody saying anything. It's mercy, right? At which point, Patty Mayne comes out and he says to the rest of his troops, he's like, "Give this guy whatever whiskey we have," because in his head he realizes you just lost your brother, and it's like he has this realization that he's a human being, right? He's a POW now, and he's being treated, but you know, to the conventions. That whole special effect, by the way, the whole guts thing. They use that later on when one of the guys in the SAS who hasn't been sleeping because the PTS is intense with him, he gets left behind to basically hang out in a laundry in a little Italian town because they've been told they need to wear their uniforms and they don't have them because they're basically soaked in blood. So this one soldier stays there, and when he's there, he's there. The daughter, so it's a mother, father, like teenage daughter, and then like a young son. And the teenage daughter speaks English, so he's talking to her, and her little brother becomes very sort of enamored of the soldier, and they start playing around together. And the soldier, you kind of see him light up a little bit, and he's talking to this kid, even though the kid doesn't know what he's saying, and he's saying how, you know, he's got nephews and nieces, and he reminds him of them, and of course when the battle starts in that town, the laundry gets bombed, and that guy freaks the fuck out. And when he goes in there, they're all dead except for the kid. and they use the fucking gut special effect on the kid where he's laying there and he's basically holding in his innards, but he's still alive. And the soldier who is friendly with him is basically having this nervous breakdown, but knows that he has to shoot him because it's mercy. He is dying. He is in agony. And that's the thing, is this show has moments like that. And then it also has moments of hilarity, which is kind of like, that's, I guess, the nature of war, is that some things are terrible and some things are victorious and comical. But I tell you, that gut special effect is very well done. I give them a lot of credit. Obviously, they figured out how to use it and said, we got to use this more than once. It doesn't look exactly the same, but it's an incredibly well done special effect, and they use it like a hammer. When it comes out, you're just like, oh god. So yeah, it's a great show. I enjoyed it a lot. It's not light fare per se, but I liked it, and I like the way they have the Patty main character is written. I see a mean streak of me in him, which is kind of funny. I think, honestly, you would probably see a mean streak of you as well. And yeah, I don't know if there's going to be a third season, but I really enjoyed the second season. I wonder if they're even going to be on the same streaming service. And I don't think they're getting the money from MGM, because they're on MGM Plus now. I think BBC and somebody else is funding it. They're filming it, and then they're selling the streaming rights after the fact. So, and Stephen Knight's the same guy who did Peaky Blinders. He did Taboo, which is a fucking awesome show. There is a theme to his shows. Have you seen Peaky Blinders at all?
I've seen clips of it, but I haven't watched it.
Angry fucking main characters. Like that is one of his themes. Because Cillian Murphy in Peaky Blinders is this kind of low simmer angry bastard. PTSD from World War One. What's his name? Tom Hardy is the lead in Taboo, and he's an angry man who's not happy with the British government. And in this, Patty May is the lead, and he's an angry man. So it's like there's kind of a theme to this guy's shows, but I like it. But his shows are successful, so my hope is that he will get to make more of these, and that I will get to see them sometime in the next couple of years. But I'm patient. I'll wait. I'd rather have it at some point rather than never, So it was very good, and that was the only thing I had really to on my own to discuss. I'll let you present the next part of this.
All right, that's everything. That's
all I got. Yeah,
that's all the stuff for you.
Yes.
All right. Well, as we have been doing now for a little bit, we've been doing recently, Lando and I decided to watch another film together.
This music is so much cooler than we are by like miles. Miles.
All right, I believe this was your suggestion.
Yes,
you said, let's watch this.
Yeah,
so why
so
don't you tell the fine folks what we decided to watch in concert together for the first time, both of us seeing it for the first time.
Yeah, so Joe and I were looking for the next movie, and there's a ton of shit that we can watch. But I read an article about how Francis Ford Coppola won the Razzie, which is kind of like the biggest fuck up Oscar for director for Megapolis, right? And that in itself is not out of the ordinary, but his response to it was something that I had a lot of respect for, so much so that I sent it to Joe, which basically he was like, you know what? He's like, I'm going to take this. He's like, and I'm going to take this proudly. He's like, I don't need to make art that could be processed for profit in the big studio system. He's like, I wanted to make art. He's like, and I'm not going to be afraid. And I did that. And I'm proud of the art that I made. And he's like, I proudly accept this award. And it was basically like a fuck you. I did what I wanted. I'm happy about it. And I was like, wow, that is something. That is so something that now I'm fucking curious what you made, what you did, that got you a Razzie, and your response was such defiance in the face of it that I'm like, hey, you know what? You got me. Like that. It's not that I was ever against that movie, but that movie was at the bottom of my list. Like, I wasn't going to see it anytime soon. It's a super long flick, high concept piece. Like, you were going to see it before I did. But then I read that thing and I was like, holy shit. I was like, you know what? I do like somebody that turns around and says, fuck you, to like, the way things are. And Joe and I were talking about it. And then I was like, I wonder if we should watch this together. I was like, I wonder if it'd be any good. Like, if, because worst case scenario, it's fucking awful. And the two of us will just lambast it and have a good time. I was like, but what if there's something there? What if there's something there that we might actually get something out of? And so Joe went hunting. And we found a copy.
No, I had that copy for a while because you can only get it digitally. It's been available since, I believe, late last year.
Yeah, there's no hard copy in the U.S.
No, there's no hard copy of it apparently ever in the U.S., although I suspect that's not really true. It's probably going to be released after he dies. That's my guess. It will be like a box set, and it'll be there. I think I meant to watch it on New Year's. I was like, there might be something cool about watching this on New Year's, and I didn't end up watching it. But in any event, so I was like, all right, yeah, let's watch this. And
and I got to say, this series of reviews that we're doing is rapidly becoming, for me, movies that Joe and I can only watch together.
Yes, there is a different quality to it.
I wouldn't watch this with my wife. I don't think she'd get it. And I don't think you'd watch this with your wife either. And there's a few of these that we've watched that I'm like, yeah, the only person in my life I'd really watch this with would be you.
Yeah, that's, these are, most of the movies we've watched, I've watched myself. That I've seen
exactly,
already.
right?
Yeah, I think in every case, it's been ones I've just watched myself if I've already seen it. But yes, this is my wife. I wouldn't even bother with this with her because she would just
And let me tell you, up front, right? So we watched this together. There's a recording of it.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
I enjoyed it. Like, it's a really weird flick. And I say to you, I this morning woke up thinking about it. I've actually thought about this movie quite a bit, and it's like, not because the story was so complex, but more so the idea of how he expressed the metaphors in it. Like, I don't think this is a bad movie. I do, however, think that he would have been served by having an editor, maybe perhaps outside of his monetary control. Because the worry when you fund your own movie is that there's no one there to stop you and go, hey, maybe tighten this up a little bit here, right? Because there are times in the movie where I feel like the editing is sloppy, right? And there's definitely moments in the movie where the CG gets floaty, but I feel like they focused the CG, the necessary CG, in the right places, and they left the floaty shit floaty that kind of doesn't matter because it doesn't necessarily need to be, so realistic. Like, there's a suspension of disbelief, I guess is what I'm saying. But I enjoyed it. I mean, I think it won you over before it won me over.
Oh, yeah. I think it was within the first 15 minutes I said, no, I'm all in. I don't really care. I'm all in on this. Because I would disagree. I don't think anything of this should be changed. I don't think an editor would have improved it. I think
No. I have an example, though. There is a scene where there's almost like a quick cut where they're suddenly on the floor. And I'm kind of like, is a minute of the movie missing or something like that? There are these little cuts. Some of them make total sense to me, but there's a few where I'm like, it doesn't feel right. It feels sloppy.
The problem is we don't know, at least yet.
Yeah.
We don't know, and I would hope that when this does get a physical release, which I will buy if it's outside the U.S., I don't care.
Yeah.
I said to you, I've imported more than a few 4Ks because, whatever, who cares? What I'll be curious about is I hope there's a commentary by him on it. And what I would be curious to know, and I don't know, I don't go out and spend hours searching every piece of trivia and interview. I'm not going to do all that. But is it that the footage doesn't exist because they had no... He funded this himself.
Yeah, yeah.
This was his, as he's described it, his last big passion project film. Likely his last film.
Yeah.
At least that's what he said. Now, of course, directors have said that before and suddenly changed their mind.
No, but the mythology of this movie has been around since he was doing Apocalypse Now.
Yes, and it feels like he, probably because of the political climate in the United States, felt like he needed to release this now to make the point as effectively as possible. And it
is a message movie too. Like in the
oh boy, is it the opening scene?
Go ahead.
The opening scene shows us a building, and the first sentence inscribed on the building is, "Our American Republic is not all that different from old Rome." Right? So right there, that is your message. That is the core. And as you said, this is not a movie with a heavy narrative. I said, okay, I've realized that the visuals are the point, but the actual story is very simple.
The story itself is actually very straightforward. And what happens is if you let yourself get distracted by the visuals, you'll actually think that the story is more complicated than it is. And it's not. The story is very simply, you've got a city that is got a huge poor population, needs reconstruction, and you have basically a mayor or emperor type person who feels that they should continue doing what they're doing. You have what is essentially kind of like a senator. I mean, that's what they are, Roman style. They're senators. You have a senator essentially who's sitting there saying, no. I think we should do something new and different that takes the culture in a different direction that could be better. And then you have people who basically just want power. And in the midst of this storyline are looking to grab whatever power they can get by destroying other people, regardless of their agenda, right? They're almost like agents of chaos. And in the end, the agents of chaos are destroyed by their own plotting, right? Or John Voight's corpse, whichever way you want to look at it. And the mayor, who is our emperor, who is afraid of the future, is brought to not understand but accept the fact that the senator's vision of the future may be the way they have to go, and is the hope for tomorrow. Right? That it's not that complex a story.
It's Star Trek 6.
You've seen it before. Yeah, you've seen it before. What's different here is the fact that I think for me, it felt like Coppola was going, you know what? I want all the fantastical metaphor to just be right out there for you to see. And that's where this movie gets its kind of fantasy element. Whereas rather than have subtext and kind of quiet metaphor, you've got screaming loud metaphor, to the point of which that the main character, Adam Driver, his ability to stop time is a metaphor for artists' ability to kind of, record a moment in time, the way a painter paints a painting, or a writer writes a scene, or, a songwriter kind of, captures an idea in a moment, right? But it is illustrated in the movie by his ability to stop time, and other people's ability to see it or not to see it designates whether they can also see his artistic vision or have an artistic vision of their own. And it's things like that where you're like, okay, I understand what you're doing. And I think once I understood what he was doing, it made it far more of an enjoyable experience. Definitely a weird one, but like, I do not think this is a bad movie at all. I think this is a very intense, symbolic work of art. I mean, yeah. I don't want to. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Well, as far as what you were saying about an editor, the thing that I'd be curious about is, was there footage available that bridged that particular scene, or did they not have?
They just not have it and say fuck it, yeah.
Right, and that's where it's difficult for me to say an editor could improve it, because I don't know what there was.
But you know what? So, if I found out there was a longer version of this movie, because originally you said it was like 4 hours.
Well, that's what I thought I read, but you know what? I have not found anything, and that's why I'm thinking maybe there wasn't.
I would watch a longer version of this movie, because I do feel that there's a lot of interesting, because Dustin Hoffman's in this movie, and he's the fixer for the mayor character. And like you see him in a few scenes, and you know Dustin Hoffman is being Dustin Hoffman. He's always good. But then he gets like basically killed off at one point, practically off screen. They almost show like just a quick shot of it, and you're like, okay, there was more going on with this character.
And see, that's where I wonder if they intended to film it and didn't get to. So they basically had a scene where he's running and it's CG pillars falling on him. I mean, it's not even good CG.
Yeah.
So that feels like we did not have the ability to film it. So what we did was we took an existing shot.
Yeah, and the thing
we
is,
CG'd the death into it.
Yeah, and I said to you, I was like, Dustin Hoffman could have been removed because of that. Dustin Hoffman could have been removed from the movie, and it really would have made a difference.
Yeah.
You know, there's a few little things along the way that you could have removed. If you wanted to make it shorter, you could have removed. And like Dustin Hoffman's presence, though I like it, really not that much, you know. Whereas I thought John Voight was going to be a throwaway character, and he was so not.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing is that early on in the movie, you're not even sure who's important, and then as the movie goes on, it's like you're like, oh, okay, like this is probably one of Shia LaBeouf's best roles.
Yeah, I would absolutely, with no joking or anything, say this is the movie I've enjoyed him the most in.
Yeah, I mean, there is a scene
that very easily.
There is a scene in this movie that I was just so shocked and laughing my ass off because it's literally Aubrey Plaza, who is married to his uncle or his granduncle, right? Is it his granduncle or is his or no, his father, his grandfather. She's married to his grandfather.
His grandfather, yeah, grandfather.
She's married to his grandfather, and who is played by John Voight.
That would have been Caesar's great uncle, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And she is plotting to basically like kind of take over the bank business from the old guy using the nephew. And they are having this affair scene where they're like basically she's essentially mounting his face.
and her name is Wow Platinum.
Yeah, her name is Wow
Platinum.
Platinum.
That he call her Anti-Wow.
Call anti-wow, but it sounds like anti-wow.
Well, that's the thing. Is it supposed to be ANTI or AUNTY?
I don't know. It sounds like anti-wow, but when you hear it muffled through, her crotch, it sounds like anti-wow. Either way,
I'm gonna look it up.
That scene is incredible, and that's the thing is that you get these kind of like floaty, almost montage scenes, and then you get to these like really intense, beefy scenes of stuff going on. Yeah.
What's that?
That's your pussy.
Directly from that scene, I did pull that clip. That is played straight.
Oh my god! And that's, I mean, that is only a minor part of how great that scene is, though, because like literally they're plotting, and it's the way that she is physically taking charge of him in that scene. Okay,
so in the quotes that I'm seeing, they're spelling it as in AUNTIE.
Oh, auntie, yeah. So it's his aunt.
Yeah. Whereas I was reading it as auntie, meaning that she was now not wow, which was better to me. Anymore. So this is actually a letdown. Yeah. I was reading as ANTI dash
you know what?
wow.
But you know what? Maybe LaBeouf was saying anti-wow on purpose. Maybe that was his own thing. You don't know.
So.
Remember, listen, this movie of all movies is
she says, call me anti-wow. And that was where I thought that now that this was a different version. She tells him to do it. I remember because I was like,
but I was saying, this is an interpretive movie. So honestly, you can interpret that whatever way you want. That's the kind of movie this is. Yeah. I don't think there's a hard guideline there. Because so much of this movie is metaphor. You know? And some of it is like, so apparently there is a scene. I did look up some of the trivia because I was curious. And there is a scene in this movie where Adam Driver is running down the stairs. I can't remember where he's running to. But for literally 1 second, there is a shot of his wife's ghost kind of running along with him. Right? Yeah. But it is literally a second long. Like, you barely even would register that it's there. And it's that kind of stuff. The fact that Coppola was like, you know what? I want to put this in here. It's these little things like all through the whole movie is this little thing all the way through. So yeah, I mean, we could sit down and go through the whole story, right? But I don't think it's important because the story itself is not the most amazing thing about this movie. The story itself is kind of simple. It is a It's a story about how people have to embrace the future and try something new and try something that is better for the people, and to not just do the same corruption that they've always been doing, right? It's about the end of a republic, but the beginning of something better. It's having hope, right? And I like that. Yeah. This movie is it's very hopeful tone to it. That that art and design and that it'll endure, that you can make things better, which is the whole Malloryism, where it's like, things are fucked up, but we can make them better. I love that.
Right.
But that's not what makes this movie so interesting. It's just all the little metaphoric scenes. It's all the little specific choices. It is the costume work. It is the specific choices of who to put where, when, and at times the movie goes insane, and then it catches itself and it comes back. The scene where Driver is on like an acid trip and he's got like 100 arms or something like that. I mean, it's just
yeah.
It's a space cadet of a movie, but I really enjoyed it. It felt, I mean, at one point I think you said this was too art house for A24. I think is what you said.
Well, not that it's too art house, but it's. I literally wonder if A24 would look at this and say, yeah, this narrative is not challenging enough. It's just the visuals, and we want more than that, and that's not meant to be a derogatory statement.
Yeah.
But like you said, this story is very simple. It is an argument of what makes I mean, there's literally one of the only two clips I pulled is a debate between the mayor character and Caesar's character over utopias and dystopias and what makes it.
Oh, yeah, that's a really good scene. Yeah.
That's really... I'm going to play it because this is really the movie. Right here. It's a bit of a long clip, but I've only got two. But this is, if you want to know what the movie's about, forget all the visuals. Here's the movie. I'm going to give it to you in 2.5 minutes. Here it is.
Utopias offer no ready-made solutions.
Well, they're not meant to offer solutions. They're meant to ask the right questions.
Yes, but utopias turn into dystopias.
So we should just accept this endless conflict that we live in now? Wasn't it human friendliness that stimulated our brains by learning and enabled us to outcompete all other species on Earth?
Oh dear, blah, blah, blah.
It's a nice picture, but how do we know?
Well, there's no other way. How else could such a slow-maturing species make it through the Ice Age?
Now,
How could
boys.
such few weak bipedal apes evolve more costly brains, smarter brains than other apes, and do it without reproducing so slowly they go extinct?
We were fierce, aggressive, warlike, as our closest ancestors, chimpanzees.
Yes, but there were so few of us and scattered across a vast continent. So, no.
In or out? Are we playing cards or reinventing history?
Where were we? This is an enormous pot.
Caesar's winning.
Civilization itself remains the great enemy of mankind. Rousseau.
You're quoting Petrarch. To be accurate, misquoting him. Julia can quote anyone. Humor me, please.
Daddy.
You remember.
I do. I remember.
Poise.
It is the responsibility of leadership to work intelligently with what is given, and not waste time fantasizing about a world of flawless people and perfect choices. Marcus Aurelius.
Here, here. Excellent.
Don't say your philosophy, Daddy. Embody it. The object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape, finding yourself in the ranks of the insane. Marcus Aurelius. The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. Marcus Aurelius.
Now, we haven't really laid out any of the characters or anything, so we probably should. I probably should have done that before I played this, but in essence, there's not, for a movie as packed full of people as this is, there's really only a few characters you have to care
about. Important, yeah.
that are important. The central characters are Adam Driver is Caesar Catalina, which I always think Catalina dressing, so I remembered his last name instantly. Giancarlo Esposito is the mayor, whose name is Cicero.
Who's basically like the emperor, yeah.
Yeah, the emperor, for all intents and purposes. His daughter is Julia, who you just heard in that clip, which Adam Driver's character ends up with and then is with from about the midpoint or so of the film. At first, there's kind of an antagonistic thing between them because Adam Driver, at first, is shacking up with Aubrey Plaza's very kind of gold-digging media personality named Wow Platinum.
Oh, yeah, he's having fun with her. And then the second she gets attached, he's like, oh, wait a minute. There's a great scene, actually, where she says, I love you. And then Joe and I were both like, uh-oh. And that was it.
And then he leaves. He just gets up and he's like, I'm out of here.
That's it.
Yeah. So, yes, exactly. And then John Voight is the banker of the city, the biggest bank of the city.
Yep.
And he is the grandfather to Shia LaBeouf, whose character is basically a Proud Boy neo-Nazi.
Yes.
They eventually just bring in literal Nazi imagery, so that I'm not inferring that. It is directly stated.
No, they bring in
shown.
swastikas and the black sun and everything, yeah.
Right. The Lawrence Fishburne plays essentially the Ishmael to Adam Driver's character, his chauffeur, and also the kind of
he's a
but he's
narrator. But he's also like his assistant and to some degree his companion and his bodyguard.
Yeah,
like he's his everything. Yeah. It's I don't want it to be a belittling thing because he apparently is also recording the history of it.
He is, but I wouldn't call him an assistant. He's present, but he's never. There is a distance to him, so he's not quite the. I would not call him his assistant. He is kind of almost his. What's the name for people who run around like a gopher, but not a gopher? There's a name for it. Whatever it is.
Oh, yeah, I got you.
He's a glorified
his fixer.
Gopher,
his fixer.
No, but like on a set, there's a person who goes and gets the coffee for the main person. They're always around, but they're never that intimate because there's never a part where the two of them seem to talk with any real familiarity. They have discussions in the car, but Adam Driver seems to keep everybody at a distance, at an orbit around him, except for Julia at one point, and then of course Wow. So yeah, he's there. He's
I think he keeps Wow at a distance as well.
Well, okay, but he's sleeping with her. What I'm saying is, I don't believe Fishburne has ever been in his apartment.
If you think you can't sleep with a woman and keep her at a distance mentally...
No. I mean... I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, I don't believe the Lawrence Fishburne character has ever been inside Adam Driver's apartment. Wow at least has. Distance or not, she's in there. I do not believe, based on what
are you considering his apartment, though?
Where he and Wow sleep together.
Was that hers or his?
Sorry, that was the thing I wasn't clear about. Was it hers or his? Because I couldn't tell.
I thought that was hers.
See, and I thought that was one of his kind of mistress places because he has the apartment for the wife.
I think it was hers, which is why it was such a mess. Whereas whenever you see his environments, they're like very designed and very.
But didn't she talk about the place being a mess and why was he letting it be a mess? I remember her saying something about that. So that's what I thought. I think they were trying to visually represent that he didn't care about her at all through the disharmony of the place.
Listen, it could be what it was. Like I said, it's pure metaphor.
Yeah. So in any case, she ends up shacking up with John Voight to get access to his money and power. Shia LaBeouf is the grandnephew or whatever, who, again, is a Nazi. And the only other Dustin Hoffman is there as Cicero's fixer guy.
Yeah, but it's a blink. He's barely there. He has a few lines in the beginning, and then that's it.
Jason Schwartzman is also kind of barely there as a secretary of some kind to Cicero. I don't know, or secondary lieutenant governor or mayor, whatever.
Yeah, you see his face. That's about it. He doesn't have any lines.
But really, the movie is Driver, LaBeouf. I don't know who the actress who plays Julia. I don't know that actress's name.
I'll look her up. I've seen her in something else.
Well, let me look it up. It's not really fair not to give her the credit because she is a major character, so I should, have the decency to have her name. I'm assuming it's supposed to be pronounced Natalie Emanuel. It's spelled with a TH, so I don't think it's Nathalie, but it could be. So I will. It's one or the other. N. Emanuel. I'll just cover it that way. So that's your principles. It's really, really, when you boil this all the way down, it's Adam Driver, Giancarlo Esposito, and Emanuel, Aubrey Plaza, Shia LaBeouf, and John Voight. Others are there. I'm not saying they're not important, but those are the core characters. James Remar and D.B. Sweeney are apparently in this, and I didn't even notice them. So they're in there.
Oh, no,
somewhere.
no, I did not notice them at all.
No, I didn't either, because I normally would see people like that. So that's your main characters. And what this thing ends up is my interpretation of a lot of what goes on in the beginning is supposed to be what the mind of a creative is like, meaning the chaos, the randomness, the kind of discordant visual nature. It's all supposed to be like the burden of creativity in terms of Adam Driver's character. That's how I see all of that. That's why there's parts where he's miming, pulling Julia around with a rope at a party.
The rope scene, yes, where she's been. I interpreted that as her trying to pull him back from his own excess and him trying to pull away, which is why he mimes cutting the rope and keeps,
Sure.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, but there's tons of shit like that in the movie.
Yeah, and that's what I mean about there's a point where he's driving through the streets and you're seeing all these statues falling and it's beautifully shot. There's wonderful visuals that are being put there, but then, like I said, all of that is really the movie starts, the beginning, the middle, and the end are what the movie's about, because the beginning presents this kind of struggle between Driver's character and the mayor. And then the middle is when they have that card scene where they sit down and they're playing with cards. And then we see all this stuff where he's building Megalopolis, which is made out of a substance that I think is made from his dead wife somehow.
Okay, so I have a different interpretation of this. And I think this is what I was thinking about. So we were unsure what is it Megadon? What is that called? That's the material. It's
Megalodon, sure, whatever.
Whatever, Megadon, whatever. So the mega material, right?
It's the
Meg.
Meg.
What do you think? The Meg. What it's made of, and he keeps alluding that it has something to do with his dead wife, and there's kind of a mystery about it. But the mystery in the end is essentially that his wife and him fought, and you hear the lines of that they fought, and then she drove away. She was pregnant with twins. And it sounds like she lost control of the vehicle for whatever reason, and she went off the road. Now, there may be more to this, and she drowned in the car. There may be more to this. They allude, because they initially thought that he had murdered her, and there was a trial, but they proved that he was innocent. And even the mayor alludes that there's more information to this.
Yeah, by the way, I did read what he was supposed to be saying there, because I wanted to get that clear.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't quite clear. So from what I've read, what he's telling him in this scene where he goes to him and says, just let my daughter go and I will basically get out of your way. And he says, I will sign a confession saying that I knew that your wife killed herself, but decided to prosecute you anyway. And I will publicly admit to this, and I will back you not only privately, but publicly.
Oh,
that's what he's saying. Because I wasn't sure. I was trying to figure out if he was lying about that. I'll make this story up for you. But from what I've read, it is supposed to be that he is saying. Now, again, whether this is true or not,
the thing that
you can infer.
I interpreted this from was he says something that it was in her death that I discovered how the Meg worked, right? And I think what it was is that in her death, in her that grief and that loss, he was able to figure something out. That was the catalyst that got his brain to go to the place where it needed to discover how this thing worked. And that the grief comes from the fact that it was her death that stimulated him in such a way that he was able to invent the Meg, or the Mega, whatever. And that's his guilt. It's not that she's literally physically in it. It's that her death is the DNA to how he psychologically figured it out. So in essence, she is always there in all of it, because her death is what created it. She's not physically in it, but mentally she is every part of it.
Sure. Okay.
And since this is a movie of pure metaphor.
Yeah. Whereas I thought that she was what gave him the ability to stop time, because then when he meets Julia, then he gets it back again. So I thought that.
Well, I think his wife.
Realizing
his wife was his muse. I think the classic artist,
sure,
right? And I mean, this is a classic artist thing. Artists like having their muse, and I think that his wife was his muse, and then things fell apart, and then losing her. Even in her death, she was his muse, right? And he was anchored to her, which is why he still visualizes her and is still hung up on her. And it isn't until Julia shows up and shows him that he can have a new life, a new love, and he is able to accept a new muse, that suddenly things really pick up again.
A Megamuse, if you will.
A Megamuse.
Yes. So essentially, there's your characters. We get to that midpoint. There is that debate that they have. While this is going on, LaBouffe in the background has become a populist rabble rouser, who is basically trying. He's essentially pulling a kind of, down with the people in power. They're keeping you down, and apparently, what do you call it?
Make me the man in charge, because I'll give you what you want.
Caesar apparently kicked a bunch of people out of some areas of the city, and some of these people are poor and can't get housing. So he's basically harnessing their anger and frustration and inherent skepticism that the megalopolis won't actually do anything. He also sends a child to shoot Caesar in the face. But he survives and is reformed with the Meg. They put it
which
into
the
his face
the Meg material will apparently bind with your tissue and then eventually just become your tissue.
Yeah, the Meg in a biological sense becomes stem cells. That's what it is.
Yes,
It's stem
yes.
cells. It's super.
But honestly, I was so hoping he was going to keep that weird head for the rest of the movie.
Well, I was hoping he'd have like a gold eye that he could like fire beams out of or something like that. So
because when he's still healing, every time he pops that face out, there's like that weird scene where there's like 5 of them.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of people who duplicate in the movie, so there's all kinds of stuff that happens. So in the meantime, LaBouffe is now LaBouffing Aubrey Plaza, who is trying to manipulate him to get his grandfather's company so that she will have access to money and power. Yeah, so that's basically her whole character is basically super gold digger.
So the two of them will take over and force the grandfather.
Well, her really. I mean, I would suspect she'd have him killed immediately after she got control of the company. Yeah, or just castrate him. She does cut his hair in a very Samson and Delilah type of scene. I mean, if that's not what that's supposed to be, with all the other metaphor, I don't know what it is.
But it could be. I mean, Francis Ford Coppola is I'm pretty sure he's a Christian, right? I mean, that would be the mythology he grew up with. So
yeah, and like I said, they're all dressed in togas and everything else, so it's all
the costume design is so good.
The costuming is magnificent, and Adam Driver's pencil is my obsession of the fucking year.
It is, yeah. You love that.
Did you ever find out this pencil?
Did you find out?
No,
what it
I'm
was?
still looking. I was looking as we started recording. I was searching around, and I cannot find any information on this fucking pencil. But I'll reserve that for another time.
If I find it, I'll let you know.
If anyone knows what that pencil is, I want an Apple Pencil skin wrap of it. I found black Apple Pencil skin wraps, but none with the red band. It must have the red band. What is this pencil? I must know. Anyway, that's separate. So basically, LaBouffe manages to get a sizable contingent against him. His assassination plot fails. However, they also fail to take over the company from Voight because he fakes having a stroke as he is seemingly having a...
I wonder if he actually had a stroke and then he faked his injury.
Yes, what happens is he is having it. He calls out to God, which he calls by another... Kronos. He calls to Kronos.
Yeah.
And then a light shines on him, because I went back and I kind of rewatched that scene. So, whatever, some deity in his time of having the stroke, or whatever, heart attack, saves him or preserves him, but he fakes having been partially paralyzed so that they will underestimate him.
You notice it because at one point, he's talking to himself and he seems fine, and then as they're walking in the room, half his face kind of goes limp and he starts acting like he's not
and Aubrey Plaza says he can't even put together a sentence. And so they come in, at which point he shoots...
Hold on. My only issue with this scene, right, is that I really wanted it to be a big gun with a silencer on or something like that on there.
Yes.
The fact
I thought it was going to be a blade.
Yeah. No, because I know that he wasn't going to be able to stab them. But the fact that it was like a little
I thought he was
mini...
going to throw the knife.
A little mini bow and arrow.
Yeah, it is one of the more bizarre scenes because at first he says, "Isn't this an impressive boner?" And in fact, that clip has been played. I've seen it,
and he has a foul mouth. in the movie. And
Oh, yeah.
That's
No, he
perfectly
does.
in line with him. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like, isn't this an impressive boner? Pulls his sheet away and has a tiny little Cupid bow and arrow, which he kills Aubrey Plaza with, and then shoots Shia LaBeouf in the ass and back with, before LaBeouf is then torn apart by the crowd. So he is basically Mussolini'd. He's hung by his toes.
Yeah, because he no longer has the money or the power.
Correct. And so they basically stone him. And then the very end of the film, we see everybody escaping on a subway train to get them to Megalopolis. And as they get there, then Caesar is up on this pedestal and he is speaking. And this is the other clip I've got. And this is him talking about, and this is the end of the movie. So I said, okay, at one point I said, there's only like 10 minutes left. This is the end.
Yeah, and honestly, I had no idea how this was going to end. And I think we said that when we were watching it. We were like, I don't know where this is going. I don't know how this is going to end.
I had 3 possible endings in mind. None of them were exactly what it was. It was. We also thought at one point that either Julia or the baby would get killed. They didn't. They survive. So, in fact, the baby is the last thing you see in the movie, which we'll get to in a second. But here is Caesar's speech to the crowds, basically at the point where, I mean, we're 5 minutes from the end of the movie, and this is his big speech to everybody who's watching either on television or whatever, or in the actual crowds on the street.
Man! What is that? What do we know of him? His gods? Liberty? Love? Kindness? Mind? Death? Destiny? Destiny. I'm not concerned with my place in history. What I am concerned about is time, consciousness, and courage. But what is time? Except a curve, past and future around us. What is consciousness? Except a burst of the soul from inside. And what is courage? But the beginning of a vital conversation. We're in need of a great debate about the future. We want every person in the world to take part in that debate. Tear down debt! Tear down the world of ready-made slums that those families that run the world shove you into. You were born with the option to be what you want to be and must. Let it not be said that we reduced ourselves to be brutes and mindless beasts of burden. The human being shall rightly be called a great miracle and a living creature for all to admire. We are such stuff as dreams are made of. Hail New Rome! Hail Megalopolis! Our Mother Earth gave us the genius to see a future so beautiful that we can't let it be denied. The gates of Megalopolis are open! Go now, and know our world is changed forever!
Now, right after that, we basically see the mayor, his wife, Julia, and Adam Driver, and their baby. And they put the baby down, and we're kind of looking through a
Well,
glass floor.
and they're
up
on
at
a
them.
big podium, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
In Megalopolis, and Adam Driver stops there. Julia, I don't remember, somebody stops time.
He
and
tells
everything
Julia.
stops except the baby.
He says to Julia to stop time right as he kisses her.
Okay, that's it. And then
she
the only
stops
thing that's still
time
moving is the baby.
Yeah.
And that ties back to the beginning where the only person who saw him stop time early on in the movie was Julia. So obviously she and presumably the baby have the ability to keep going, or they have more of a mastery of that power. Who knows?
But they are part of the artistic vision. I mean, the time stop is a metaphor for artistic vision. So it's saying, yeah, my child has my artistic vision.
Yes.
Yeah,
And then
so
we get a final card that has text on it that I was going to pull the clip, but I'll just read it. It says, I pledge allegiance to our human family and to all the species that we protect, which is an interesting phrase by itself. One Earth, indivisible, with long life, education, and justice for all. And then the movie ends. So that's the final thing you see.
Oh yeah, I think it's a message movie. It's a movie of hope for the future.
Yeah.
You know, it's a movie calling for change. And this is what makes it very science fiction, because the whole idea of science fiction was originally to look forward and to either inspire or draw attention to things that could be bad. I mean, it became more adventurous as time has gone on, but science fiction was always an exploration of how science can affect us, right? And this is very classic in that respect, where it's basically looking at, the future and saying, if we don't embrace this kind of different vision of ourselves, things are not gonna get better. As he says, that we're just gonna stay in this conflict forever. I liked it. I didn't think I was gonna. I really thought this was gonna be like some kind of high art train wreck that we were gonna just tear apart. But I really liked it.
I mean, it is sort of a high art train wreck, but a great one.
Yeah, but I mean that's the thing. But I can't disparage it. That's the thing, is that it is a weird work of art. Yeah, is it bonkers? Yes. Is there weird shit in this movie? Absolutely. Are there scenes where you're like, what the fuck is going on? I laughed through half this movie because I was like, what is going on here? And yet I get to about...
And the thing is, until you sort of... because this is the inherent risk of a film like this, I think. For audiences, general audiences. When you have a movie that is... I mean, this movie starts off and, it gives you like I said, that kind of statement, which I don't know that everybody's going to read necessarily and go, okay, this is what this is about. And then when it starts just going insane, which it does right away, that will signal to a lot of audiences that there's a lot of deep, weird themes in here, and you're going to have to really pay attention, man, because we're going to be challenged. Like, it comes off.
And it
it's
isn't.
Something
it's
more
like
than it is.
The themes, I think, are very simple.
Right.
Like, the ideas are very simple, but they're very important. And rather than hide them, he's, like, putting them in your face.
And that's why, for me, there was a lot of comedy in it, because I'm sitting here going, this is so out there that I don't know what's going on, so I don't know if this is supposed to be played straight or not. And then once I knew what the message was, then I was laughing because I'm like, okay, he's just having a good time. So the nature of my reaction changed.
Yeah.
Because I kind of understood what was going on. And that's not me saying I'm some kind of genius. I don't think this movie is meant to be all that deep.
No, the story is simple. It's just, like I said, he told a simple but important story with a simple but important message.
Except, there is one thing I think that he did better than most. One thing that is different about this particular type of story. The hero, or the main protagonist, which would be the Adam Driver character, does not ever really say he has a solution. He keeps saying, no,
he
we
wants
have to
questions.
discuss
he wants
this.
the debate. Yeah.
Yes.
We can't be afraid of having this conversation. And that's kind of the
He's
interesting...
not a savior.
Yeah, he's saying, I don't have the solution, but I want us to discuss a solution together. He's not sitting there going, I'm right, and that's it.
He's saying there is no solution, that the only way forward is that everybody is involved in the conversation.
Yeah.
And that is the thing that is different about this movie, is that he is not presented as the guy with the answer, capital A.
No, he is the hero.
Somebody that's saying, right, if anything, he's arguing against a solution. He's saying there cannot be one solution. There has to be an ongoing back and forth. There has to be compromise and discussion and debate and ideas, which I think that would be the part that would probably be challenging for a lot of people who want a simple, oh, he's the guy with the answer. No, he is not. He is not the guy with the answer.
He's the guy who wants to ask the questions.
Right, and that might be the only really challenging part of this movie.
Yeah, we don't know what we don't know. Let's discuss it.
Yes, is to have to wrestle with what the answer is, or what the potential answers are, what the progress is, because in that
and that's why
debate over the cards, they are not neither of them are right or wrong. They are in fact showing the two
Giancarlo
debates.
makes an excellent counter to him. It's great.
Yes.
But that's why the temptation doesn't work, because at one point in the movie he is tempted. Aubrey Plaza offers to basically marry him and give him all of the John Voight's money, right? So he'll have all the money in the world, do what he wants. And Giancarlo Esposito basically says, give up my daughter, and I will give you unlimited support to do whatever you want, right?
Right.
Now, if he had been the type of character who was like, I know what I'm doing, this is the right thing, he may have fallen into that temptation and saying, this will give me all the money now and all the power to do whatever I want, and this is the right thing to do. But he is not tempted. He immediately walks away from those things.
And that, you just hit on the idea that even everyone in the movie doesn't know what to make of him.
Yeah.
Because they think everybody operates the same way, and they do
he
not.
doesn't. And he doesn't. No.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Whereas Aubrey Plaza tempts, LaBouffe, and LaBouffe goes for it immediately.
LaBouffe, who has one of the greatest lines I've ever heard uttered in a movie, which is, "You shut the fuck up." That is
when the crowd.
That is so great.
When the crowd he's speaking so eloquently to this crowd, and then they turn on him a little bit, and he grabs the megaphone and he yells, and it's
because one person somewhere says, like, "Long live Caesar." He's like, "Who said that?" And he immediately loses his shit, and that's when he says, "You shut the fuck up."
And everybody looks at him, and you're like, "Whoa!"
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because they get a little bit of his true nature. But that sound effect is going in the bank.
No. Honestly, for me, one of the funniest lines in this is when his driver's going to the Coliseum type party that they're having, and they're interviewing people on the red carpet as they're coming in, and they ask him, do you prefer women?
They asked Julia because as in the beginning of the movie,
was a party
we see
girl.
her with women. Yeah,
she was a big party girl.
Girls. And so they say Julia because she's there as like his biographer, or she's just taking notes or something.
At that point, she's working for him, and she's basically trying to manage him.
Yeah. Well, and
they say, Julia, do you prefer women?
And he says,
Who doesn't prefer girls? Who doesn't prefer girls? Okay, so now everyone prefers.
Thank you for your questions. Have a great night.
Right. So there's that.
Yeah, I mean, a Driver is good in this role. I mean, I had read that Bale was up for this and then couldn't do it, but like Driver is good because Driver does embody this. He has the ability to be very goofy and kind of aloof, and then be suddenly very intense and kind of with it. That was one of the things, like when he was Kylo Ren, I felt bad because basically he was always that intense driver, and he could never be like kind of this aloof person. And what's great about his ability to act is he can be go from very silly to very intense. So like this role, he has a good gambit in this role. Like, he's varied, he's serious, he's silly, he's playful, he's a bitch. You know what I mean? Like,
I think Bale would not have worked as well.
The acid trip, I don't think would have been as good with Bale in it.
Right.
It's a different energy. Yeah,
different. Yeah.
So, like I said, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, and I think that, I think there's a very specific type of people who will enjoy this movie. Like my wife's just like, I was trying to tell my wife about this movie, and she rolled her eyes at me.
Yeah, no, we said this pre-show. I would never try to show my wife this either. I was like, I know it would just be too much. I mean, I think she would watch it, and I think she'd ask me some questions. I don't think she'd walk out of it because
but she'd be like, this is very. My wife would watch this and be like, this is kind of overindulgent art house shit, is what she'd basically say.
Yeah.
And you know what? It is a little bit. I mean, this is kind of his last hurrah. He wanted to make this big fuck off art film. And to go back to what we said about the Razzie, where he basically said, you know what, I don't want to make something that looks like everything else. I want to make.
Sorry, are you calling this film overindulgent?
I do, yeah, I do.
You shut the fuck up!
He just, I think I said at one point, he just swang for the fences at every scene. He just kept swinging.
Yes.
He said, you know what, I'm just going to make this the way I want to make it. I'm going to just go hard. And that's what he did. And you have to, respect it in that respect. I enjoyed it. It's such a strange thing to me, because going in, knowing a little bit about it, I was like, the possibility that this was going to be like, kind of a big joke train wreck. I mean, listen, we've seen other movies like this where they're, Kevin Costner is always in pursuit of the epic movie.
The great film, capital G, capital
Yeah,
F.
yes, the great American film. Right? He is always hunting for this. And yet, the joke of it is, some of the movies he's done when he wasn't in pursuit of the great American movie have been some of his great movies. Like, there's a Western he did with Robert Duvall called Open Range. It's a very small Western. Very small, low-key, in my opinion, one of his best movies. But, like, he wants to make, Dances with Wolves. He wants to make The Postman. He wants to make these big epic flicks. I mean, I know there's the one that he just funded recently. Is it the American Epic? Or I can't remember. It was like a movie in 2 parts or something like that. And, like, the first part came out and people were like, it's not bad. But, like, it's okay. And, like, yeah, he put a lot of money into this. And it's that kind of thing. Is like, he wants people to be like, this is the greatest American movie ever. Whereas with this movie, I think Coppola was sitting there going, you know what? I don't want to get to the end of my life and know that I didn't try. And I tried. And I made what I wanted to make. And I'm happy with it. And fuck you. I'll take this Razzie. Yeah, I'll take this as a mark of honor that I did not give up, where everybody else just made, studio trash. Fuck y'all. Yeah. So, no, I have so much more respect. I have so much more respect for him, Coppola, as a director, than I ever did before this movie. Like, I always thought he was a good director, but after this movie, I think he's a great director.
Yeah. I mean, this is.
And listen. And I'll say something terrible. I don't even like the Godfather movies. I never liked the Godfather movies. I like all the other weird shit he's done. No, that's my opinion. I'm fine with that. I really enjoyed this.
Well, outside of that blasphemous statement, this was exactly
Come on.
more or less.
Think about it. You know my personality. That is not a movie for me. I'm not saying it's a bad movie.
Okay,
it's
that's
not
that.
me.
All right, there we go.
Yeah.
It's a very well-made movie for a certain audience.
Yeah, but it's
that's
not
this.
me.
I mean, it is this, because this movie is.
This
was more or less.
This is like if you did Godfather shit, but then, like I said, you added all these. Imagine if you directed The Godfather, right? But anytime there was a metaphor, you made it a giant fantasy sequence, right? Yeah. Any metaphor at all, because that movie does have a lot of fucking metaphor in it, right? Sure. Anytime there was a metaphor, you made it a huge fantasy sequence. Imagine how fucking weird that movie would be.
Yeah.
Right? Because, I mean, to some degree, Al Pacino would be the Adam Driver role, wouldn't he? The young man taking over.
Yeah, more or less. Yes, I would say that's
so imagine
fair
that
kind of comparison. Sure.
Imagine how fucking weird that movie would be if all the metaphors were in your face fantasy elements.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was fantastic. I really, really enjoyed it. Yeah. So it is definitely not for everybody.
No.
But I think if anything, I would say don't.
But if you listen to our commentary, which I'm not saying you should, but if you listen to it, you'll see that about halfway through the movie, I start to get very quiet, and I keep apologizing for it because I'm getting enthralled in the movie.
Yeah, you're not as quiet as you think. Because I went and looked at the thing. There are parts where we're both listening because I think we both recognized when the real movie was being told to us. So we stopped and we're like, all right, we're listening to this.
But I was enthralled with it. I was so curious where it was going to end up. So Yeah, it's good. It was good.
No, I would say don't be put off by some is it a train wreck? If what you're looking for is something like The Godfather, which narratively is very simple and straightforward, like there's no fluff to that movie, there's no embellishment. In terms of that, sure. This is
the embellishment.
This reminded
is
me
so
a lot
heavy
of
in this.
This reminded me a lot of Apocalypse Now. There are scenes in Apocalypse Now which are very surreal, borderline surreal and dreamlike. Now, they weren't as far out as this, because I don't think it would have suited the film appropriately. But this I see a direct through line. It's not surprising to me at all that this was started around that time, because there's a lot of similarity to me. And so the thing that you have to understand is that this movie is not that complicated. Just, the clips I played and the inscriptions you will see, that's the movie. Everything else is an expression of the creative mind of the Adam Driver character. And there's a lot of political kind of allegorical imagery where we're seeing statues crumbling and things happening that are, reflections of the filmmaker's opinion on things.
And there's a sequence in there where he goes to a place that looks like a mausoleum, and he goes into a room, and his wife is there, right? And you and I were both like, oh my God, his wife is alive? He's keeping her alive, right? And then he starts like playing with her hair, and at which point Julia, who's followed him, kind of peeks in, and you realize the wife is not there. That it's basically Driver is just sitting there, and it looks like he's just fiddling with the pillow. But when you see it from his point of view, she's there. And I realized after the fact that, yes, that is Adam Driver basically carrying his own grief of his wife.
Yes.
That Julia cannot see because it is not her grief. Yes. And that's what I mean by, like, it's that level of imagery where it's like, and actually, I will draw this back to my SAS thing. There is a scene in the end, towards the end of the last episode of season 2, where the character Patty Main they've come back to the UK to basically get ready for D-Day, and they have some downtime, and he goes to this lake, and he's out there all by himself fishing, and there's a character that there were basically kind of gay undertones through the whole first season, that two of them may have been more than just friends, right? But either way, they were very close, and losing this friend in the first season like just broke Patty Main. So in season 2, in this scene, he's sitting in the boat, he's by himself, and he starts talking to himself, and then he turns, and there's the best friend, and the best friend and him start talking about the fact that he's dead. And Patty Main says something like, I should have known the desert couldn't keep your ghost down, or something like that. And it's this whole sequence where Patty Main is talking about his guilt. And when the camera pans out, he's alone in the boat. When the camera pans in, he's sitting there talking with the guy. And you realize that this is Patty Main's grief and the madness of his grief. And he has this great line where he says, you know what? He's like, I hear all these voices of the men that I didn't save. He's like, at least I know that at the end of the day, he's like, when I'm alone and when the wind is blowing, he's like, I'll never really be alone, will I? But it's this whole idea. It's like, the camera pulls back to say this isn't real, but then the camera pulls in, and you're seeing what he's experiencing. You're seeing the metaphor of his grief. That he thinks in his head that he's talking to these dead people, and it's that kind of idea. It's like, you're making the viewer understand the psyche of the main character. Click, 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 click.
No. I mean, I don't think I have anything to add. I think we've said.
No, it's
I'm
great.
sitting here going, is there anything else that I really
I only
have
have one question.
Movie?
Did I find the pencil?
Yeah, it looks like Derwent is. Yeah, I was about to bring that up.
Okay.
It looks like you did get it. Yeah, that looks like it's it. Because based on what I'm seeing,
I don't know if it is, but it might be. Yeah.
Well, it's a drawing pencil, and in that scene, I looked at it in the actual video. He is drawing. He's sketching when he shows the pencil the first time.
Yeah.
And and that is, it sure looks like it has the same basic visual makeup.
The red band in it and everything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think you got it. I'm pretty sure you did. So related
Yeah.
Because you don't have anything else, right? I mean, I think we both recommend it. Just
Oh,
understand what you're
no.
getting
Yeah,
into.
that was it. We watched it. It was way better than we thought it was going to be. I would, if you like strange art films or you like heavy metaphor and beautiful visuals, check it the fuck out. I do not think that it is a waste of time at all. It was an enriching ride through Coppola's vision.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. I think we both really had a great time with it, and I'm happy that it wasn't bad. I mean, because yes, the CG can be uneven at times. Some of the editing is a little chaotic, but we don't know yet whether that was by necessity or choice.
Listen, this is like watching a B movie in the sense that sometimes people make these B movies, and this happens all the time with you. You watch a movie, right, and you'll review it to me, and you'll be like, there were some really good ideas in here, but clearly they didn't have the money, so they did the best they could with the money they had. Now, in this situation, Coppola did the best he could with the money he had. Now, he had a lot of fucking money, but the reality is that he needed way more to actualize the completeness of his vision, right? And so, in a weird way, it's the B movie thing. It's the director had a vision. This was all the money he had. This is what you get.
Yeah. And it's good.
So, it's good.
It's one thing. No matter what you think of it, it is not boring.
No.
You
And
will not
honestly,
be bored.
LaBouffe dressed as a woman halfway through the movie is amazing.
Well, you said, and you're correct, the costuming is one of the highlights. The whole, like, the black and gold. If you ever played Deus Ex Human Revolution and liked that color scheme,
the
you will
cops.
love this movie.
With the black and gold piping on the SWAT vests and everything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, the attention to detail in some of the
and
visuals
the hats.
is outstanding.
Oh, the hats are so good in this.
It is visually spectacular. Even when it is, some of the CG fails it, who cares? It's still framed beautifully. It's still shot beautifully.
The real people part of this is so well done.
But even like where the statues are falling, there's one
yeah.
part that they're showing a pregnant woman with twins, and it subdivides into people, and I'm pretty sure that was done practically.
That is so neat.
If
the
not,
way it just breaks into tons of people. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever it is, it's done really well.
You know what? I get the sense that at some point down the road, that a theatrical rendition of this could be done. If you had the money, you could turn this into a stage show, and it would be
without a doubt
beautiful.
Oh yeah, no, this could easily be put on as a play.
Yeah.
And for some audiences, it would be better because they'd have to simplify and kind of minimize some of the more
maybe not a
fantastical
musical
stuff.
though. Yeah, I don't know if this would be a good musical, but maybe, who knows?
No, this would be more of a straightforward. Well, I mean, you could build songs around the debates. You could make them into, like Hamilton did that. I mean, you could do it.
True, yeah.
You could do it.
Hey, listen, the Aubrey Plaza scene with LaBouffe would be a beautiful musical.
Yeah, I mean, there was a musical performance in the central part, or kind of in the middle of the film about contributing to Deflower Virgin. So that's.
Oh yeah, the musical part. I did forget about that. Yeah.
Yeah, you would have to have many actresses who look similar. To achieve that correctly, but you can do all that stuff. That's possible.
Yeah, but they have those photorealistic masks now that you can get.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You could do it.
Stunt
really
guys
easily.
wear sometimes. Yeah.
Or you just have them wear a mask that you can project on. You project the singing face onto it.
We started talking about the musical, and in my brain, all I can hear is to the music of from Grease. It's like anti wow, can I go down on you? Yeah. Oh well. Anyway,
anti-wow, can I eat you out now? Yeah, it's
there you go. Yeah,
it writes itself.
It
that
does.
Will not be the show title,
absolutely.
I promise.
What's that?
So, it's not going to be the show title. Anti-wow, can I eat you out now? I mean, I'm tempted, but I won't do it. So from that, now I did not watch this in this order, so this did not follow. This came before, without any of the awareness of how related it would be. But I happened to come across a Japanese animated film from 1986 called Arion or Arian. The characters in the movie say Arion.
I think I've heard of this.
Okay, but the thing that sold me was, do you want to see a Japanese take on Greek mythology? And I went, yes. Because that sounds wild, and fuck if it ain't wild. So, Arion is exactly what that description says. This is a Greek mythology war story through a Japanese kind of artistic interpretation. And it is one of the most surprising films in the things that I expected it to do that it didn't. and the things I did not see coming that it did. Because what the movie understands very well is
how do you spell Arion so I can find it?
Arion. So Arion.
Okay, got it.
Simple. 1986. You'll find it immediately.
Yep.
So the movie understands that Greek mythology is basically a long-running series of a soap opera that should be titled Days of Our Incest. And so the movie knows this is what Greek mythology in large part is all of these very jealous, angry, power-obsessed people that are willing to sleep and kill each other to get the upper hand. Now, that's not all of Greek mythology.
But you know what?
Kind of
Listen,
some of the big templates.
Having done a course on Greek mythology not that long ago, that's pretty damn close. I mean, they were the undying ones, and they saw humans as basically lesser beings, and they did fuck and fight with each other constantly.
Yes. So the movie starts out, and we see this young child named Arion, who is playing in a field, and he looks over, and he sees a large, ominous-looking man, who then goes into his home and begins to speak with his mother being Demeter? How are you supposed to say her name?
Is this a series or a movie?
No, it's a movie. It's a movie that's about 2 hours long. I want to say it's a little over 2 hours long. No, it's a movie. I don't think it was ever a series. It's not one of the ones where they made a film out of a series.
It was a book series. That's what it was.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. It was a manga series that got made into a film. I thought you meant, was it a series of short?
That's what I found. Okay.
Yes. So Demeter, what is it? Is it Demeter?
I've heard it both ways.
I'm going to say Demeter because that sounds cooler to me. So Demeter is talking with what we find out is Hades. Now, Hades in this thing is just depicted as kind of a big, barrel-chested guy with a lot of hair. Nothing sinister or malevolent or anything, so you would never know he was Hades as we've seen him depicted before. There's nothing... He just looks like kind of a big Viking. He looks like... remember the Warriors 3 from Thor, the fat one? What was it? Falstaff? Was that the big one?
Oh, yeah, I forget his name. He's the one that becomes the...
He looks like a half the size Falstaff, but that general kind of shape. And so you hear him, and he's talking to Demeter, and he says, the problem is that goddamn Zeus and Poseidon are, they're fighting, they want everything, and I'm fucking sick of it. So maybe I could just borrow Arion and, train him. And she's like, no, you're not going to take him. There's been enough done to me. I'm not going to let you have him too. And so Hades isn't really thrilled with that. So he kind of kidnaps, he does. He kidnaps Arion by saying, because Demeter is blind. And he says, oh yeah, I noticed your mom's blind. Well, I happen to know where there's an herb that will cure her blindness. And Arion, being a young child who believes what he's being told, follows him. At which point, Hades is like, here it is. It's down in this place, and basically kidnaps him and takes him into the underworld. And in the underworld, he keeps telling him, okay, you do these things for me, do this training, and I'll give you this herb that, will clear your mother's blindness. But eventually figures out that Hades, what a surprise, is lying to him. But at this point, he is now kind of set on this path where, because he's fighting all these creatures, and he's down there for a while. And he gets older, and he gets this sword, and I don't know if the sword was supposed to be magical. I'm really not clear on that. But there's a point where he decides to escape, and then once he escapes, he's kind of out in the wilderness, and he ends up... I'm trying to remember how he gets separated from his mom. But he ends up... Now he's older, and one of the creatures that he fought in the underworld is now like his buddy, because the creature was impressed with his power. And so he's out on his own. He's trying to find his way back to his mom, because when Hades took him, I think Demeter is on an island that is far away from where the underworld is. We're never really clear on where much of anything is in this movie, I'll be honest. But he and Guido set out, and they're trying to find a way back to get to his mom. And on the way, they encounter this young child, Seneca, who steals his sword. And so Arion goes after his sword, because he really wants his sword. And Guido, the giant, Hulk-looking Triclops creature, is shot with a bunch of arrows and appears to fall to his death. He isn't dead. He'll come back later. And in the course of that, he is then attacked by all these men on horseback and is brought to a camp that, it so happens, is basically it's a war camp run by Athena, Ares, and Apollo. Now, the way the movie depicts Ares, Athena, and Apollo is the only one in the whole movie outside of Gaia, but she doesn't show up till the very end.
Oh wow, they're gonna bring Gaia in too.
They bring like everybody eventually fucking shows up in this thing. Like Cerberus is there, but Cerberus, however you're supposed to say the three dogs' name, Cerberus shoots like Godzilla volcano breath, like atomic breath, like all the things I expect them. Like Cerberus doesn't look anything like. Is it Cerberus or is it Cerberus?
I thought it was Cerebus.
All right, Cerebus. We'll just say Cerebus.
But honestly, you know what? You never know because you hear a translation, then it'll turn out to be Caribus or something like that.
I've solved it. Three Dog Night shows up, and I expected Three Dog Night to be this giant, because I've always seen Three Dog Night depicted as a giant, monstrous three-headed dog.
Yeah.
But he's really normal-sized with three heads, but he fires atomic breath. So, again, all these little interesting variations. And Athena and Ares look like normal people. Except Athena has bright red hair.
All right, but the pronunciation is Cerebus.
Cerberus. Okay,
Cerberus. There you go.
So three dog Cerberus, or three head Cerberus, is a normal looking dog who fires atomic breath.
Yeah.
Athena is just a normal looking woman. Not that she wasn't normal looking, but she's just a standard woman with bright red hair. Ares is a normal looking man, not huge or muscly, just kind of like in good shape. Kind of looks like Sean Bean, but pissed off. And then Apollo is the only one who looks like a god. He has like bright yellow eyes. He's always got a halo.
It can't be their true form, though, because if you see the true form of a god, it'll kill you mortals.
Well, he's appearing in his true form all the time.
Really?
So
interesting. I guess
yes,
they've thrown that
that's
aside.
what I'm saying. Is they're doing whatever they want with this. But Apollo is also very androgynous. Which at first I wasn't quite sure if Apollo was supposed to be presenting as male or female. I don't think it really matters, but I do think they call him he. But he is the one who looks like what you would expect a Greek god to relatively look like.
Well,
in terms of, he doesn't look human. He looks extra human or whatever, metahuman. And so he's there, and we find out that Athena has a real crush on Apollo pretty quick. Which, again, there's a lot of incest in this film, as there was in the Greek mythology. So be ready for that.
Well, I don't actually, but wait. So Apollo's father is Zeus, right?
Yes, Apollo's father is still Zeus.
So Apollo is her half brother, because his Athena's mother was somebody else, and then what's his name? Zeus ate her, and then Athena fell out of his head. So
they never say. They refer to them as siblings, full siblings. I don't know if that's a mistranslation or if they're changing things.
Yeah, I mean they are half siblings, but they have different mothers.
Yeah, so whatever the case is, Athena's got it bad for Apollo.
I don't want to make the grounds for how much is incest and how much isn't incest. I'm just saying they have different moms.
Yeah. No, so like I said, it's whatever the case, it doesn't really matter. So in the camp, they've got Arion tied up, and there's a girl that finds him that's in the camp, and she's very kind to him. She's tending his wounds, and her name is I'm going to mispronounce this. I think it's Lesafina. You never hear or Resafina. I've seen it both ways, whatever. But every time somebody says her name, they scream it, so it's tough for me to know. But it's always like Resafina. So it's just
it's Resafina with an R.
So Resafina is very kind to him, but doesn't talk. And so she's out and she's getting water. At which point Apollo shows up and appears to be about to rape her. And as he's kind of closing in on her, Ares shows up and is like, "Don't you rape girls, you fuck!" And is like throwing his sword at him. Is all pissed. I mean, he's always pissed off, but basically drives him off. And we see Apollo. Apollo's one of the few characters who has an explicit superpower. That's another thing. The gods' powers are very restrained if they're present at all.
They've played around with this. Okay, go on.
Oh, have they? And so he kind of drives him off. And so we see that Seneca shows up in the camp and is like, "Hey, man, I'm going to get you out of here." And gets him his sword back.
Seneca. So his name is Seneca.
Seneca is the young child's name who stole the sword from him. But
so
ends up
weird
being like the
that they would name that character. Seneca was a great Roman philosopher.
Yeah, okay, well, just wait. There's stuff coming.
I just find it interesting they picked the name. Go on.
Oh, it might get more interesting. So Seneca shows up, gives them the sword. They escape. They're hacking through everybody. At which point, Poseidon's army shows up, which is a bunch of ships with people on them and a lot of mermen. So a bunch of like Triton-looking Marvel mermen come out of the sea and they start assaulting everybody. They capture them again, but now he's Poseidon's prisoner instead of Athena and Apollo's prisoner, or Athena, Apollo, and Ares' prisoner. He slices Ares in fucking half early. Like when they're breaking out, Ares is like, stop. He's like, fuck you, and cuts him in half. So Ares is dead. Like this motherfucker wipes out gods left and right. So he ends up so Athena and so Poseidon is fighting Athena and Apollo because I guess they're supposed to represent Zeus, even though later Apollo goes after Zeus, but we'll get to that. So we have this big war happening between Poseidon's army and Apollo's army, and it's just people getting hacked up and killed left and right. Like Hades shows up and Cerberus is running around like it's fucking mass hysteria, mayhem. And
cats and dogs living together.
Exactly. So at one point, Arion gets really sick and he starts hallucinating, and he thinks that Poseidon is Hades, who he hates now because he realized he was lying to him. And so he kills Poseidon, who Hades had said, well, that's your father.
Why is
so
Arion so good at killing gods?
I don't know, man, but he is like a god slayer. And so he's killing them left and right, and then realizes that he's killed his own father and goes on the run because Seneca's like, holy shit, man, patricide, they don't like that shit. They're going to kill you.
No, it's a big
deal. So they
deal,
go on the run. It is a big deal. And they run into Hades, who's like, hey, man, I know what you did. I'll give you one last chance. Back me up against Zeus, and, I'll defend you against these people trying to get you for patricide. And Arion's like, go fuck yourself. So Hades is like, all right.
Does he actually say, go fuck yourself? Because that's one of my favorite lines.
No, sadly, he doesn't tell him to get fucked. He's like, fine, three dog attack. Three dog goes after him.
I would much rather prefer a very fantasy. No, thou shalt fuck thyself.
Yeah. Thou shalt fuck thyself as opposed to any other. But anyway, he destroys Cerberus. He cuts him have intercourse with thyself and no other violently. So he cuts Cerberus into like 80 pieces, and then Hades is like, oh no, shit. And then he kills Hades. Now Hades is dead. So Arion has wiped out like half of Olympus at this point with very little effort.
Well, he's killed two of the big three.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is basically now Zeus is left.
What's left of the Greek universe at this point?
All right. So at this point, we cut back to camp, and we've got Athena and Apollo, and Apollo shows up, and Athena's like, oh, you want that girl, don't you? You know I want you. And he's like, get fucking lost. I don't want you. He's like, and you don't even understand what I like about her, but I'm not having sex with you. Go away. And she gets very upset, and she kind of backs off. And so now Arion and Seneca are in this camp, and Arion is having all these weird dreams about, like, Hades attacking him and being a young child and all this other shit. And so then we cut to Mount Olympus, which isn't really a mount. It's more of like a Geiger-esque kind of building in a wall. And so inside, Zeus is shitting himself with like uncontrollable like fear because he knows Arion is on his way.
I thought he was actually shitting. Sorry.
No. Zeus is.
Listen,
in a
I don't know what
panic.
kind of anime this is. It could be a very Orokuseki Dojo for all I know.
You're right.
So he's shitting himself with fear.
So he's terrified, and he summons what I think are supposed to be the three oracles. It's three women of some power who show him, like that Arion is going to get him. Which
is so funny because Zeus is one of the few gods who actually has the power to see the future to a limited degree.
Zeus in this film has virtually no power at all. He never does anything.
Wow. Okay.
I think at one point he shoots a light beam, but there's no lightning, no thunder. He is an old man, for all intents and purposes, who is hiding in his castle. And it's a strange...
such a big deal?
Well, I think it's because of the armies he controls and the people like Athena, Ares, and Apollo all work for him. In theory, Apollo is secretly working against him as far as I could tell the whole time. But basically, he's got the god of war and the god of the hunt, or the goddess of the hunt, I guess. So he's got the two best war gods there are, right? They're like the top two, aren't they? Isn't Ares and Athena like the top end?
Well, yeah,
of
Athena is
war
the
gods?
tactician, and Ares is
So-
wanton war. Yeah.
In theory, if this wild kid wasn't going around hacking everybody up with his magic sword, like Zeus would be probably a couple steps
Yeah,
away
I mean,
from
is
running the table.
the sword very magical? That is it giving him so much? Either they have really, really weakened the gods, or they've really, really upped the power on this kid.
Well, what you find out, and I don't know, I'll just jump ahead. What you find out is that, in fact, Arion is not Poseidon's son. He is Prometheus's son.
Oh,
And there's-
interesting. Okay.
Yes. So I don't know
And Prometheus, so are they, is he one of the Titans? The way they're...
Yes.
He was one of
He
the
is a
Titans.
Titan. Yes.
Oh, so he
that's
is
what
the
they
child
say.
of a Titan.
Is
Okay.
he's either part or full Titan, because it's Demeter. Demeter is not a Titan, right? Demeter's
No,
just a
she's not.
goddess.
Demeter is, she's just one of the Greek gods. Yeah.
Or is she a demigod? Whatever she is. So he's not full Titan, but he's part Titan. So that's why he can kill all these. So it was never clear to me if Prometheus forged the sword and that's why it's so superpowered, because Hades just had it. And so it's not clear that Hades, because I'm not really clear on why that sword is so good, or if it's because Arion is wielding it that it's that powerful. Unclear. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, who knows?
So Zeus is in there, and Zeus says to these magical witch women, because he calls them, I think, witch women or something, the Erenyes or something. There's a name for them. It's Erin. Hold on, Erinyes is the title. Okay, the Furies. They're the
there you go, the
Erenyes,
Furies.
also known as Eumenides, the gracious ones, known in English as the Furies, the chthonic goddesses of vengeance. Okay, that's them.
Aren't they the kindly ones?
I
think
this
the
one says
kindly
gracious ones. Gracious. It says gracious
yeah,
ones.
the
here.
kindly
Same
ones.
thing.
The kindly ones. So in Sandman, the kindly ones are based off of this.
Okay, got it. All right,
Yeah.
yes. All right, so that's these three. So he basically says, hey, this fucker killed his father. That's against the law. You got to get him. And they're like, okay, yeah, we'll get him. And so Zeus is like, aha, I've outsmarted him, because there's no way that one child, because he doesn't know he's a Titan, or he doesn't know who his actual father
There is no chance
he's
that a
like-
mere demigod could take on the kindly ones. Ha 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 ha!
Exactly. So he's like, this kid is screwed. I win. Ha checkmate, motherfucker. So they're like, yeah, right. He shows up, we'll kill him with our magic scythes, because they all have magic scythes that they kind of pull out of nowhere. So Arion is in a cave. He's kind of miserable and depressed because he's like he thinks he's killed his father. Like, everybody wants to kill him. You know, he just wants to get back to his mother, who's still going to be blind. Like, he's just miserable because he's like 16, so he's not doing well.
Yeah, I mean,
At
he'd be miserable anyway because he's 16.
Well, right. Yes. So at which point, a man who has a lion's head, who refers to himself as the Black Lion King, walks in and says, hey, you know what, man? Suck it up. You can kill Zeus. Go get him. And he's like, oh, all right. And he comes out and he sees Seneca and Guido are there. And he's like, hey, where did the Black Lion King guy go? And they're like, who? He's like, you didn't see the Black Lion King guy? The guy with the black lion head? And they're like, no, we didn't see him. He's like, oh. All right, well, whatever. Let's go to Mount Olympus. Dun, 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 dun. So they go to Mount Olympus, and they have to take before they go there, suddenly a little Yoda-like guy shows up. And his name is, Lycaon. He's this little guy, and he's like, you know what? I don't like anything that's going on here, and I'm going to help you, because if you try to go the front way to Olympus...
Lycaon or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, whatever it is. So he basically has this giant serpent-winged creature, and he's like, all right, I'm going to show you how you got to go to Olympus, because you can't go the straight way. You got to go around. The problem with going around is you're going to have to go through this area where Zeus has put every evil creature, demon thing he's ever defeated. I guess when he was younger, he was like throwing lightning out of his ass or whatever. Now that he's older, he doesn't. I'm not sure, but that's the way I inferred it.
Okay.
So he's like, all the creatures that he beat, they all live in this valley. Why he allowed them to live is unclear. So he's like, so you're going to have to go through that? That's going to be a little rough, but, you know, you can do it. And he's like, oh, and by the way, Reciphina is your sister. He's like, what? He's like, yeah, she's your sister.
But it doesn't
You know,
matter for this movie. You know that.
Yeah, right. It doesn't.
Wait, so she's also a Titan?
I think so. I mean, she must be, because she's also, she's his sister.
Unless, like I said, they're half siblings and they only share a mother.
Yeah, I don't think it matters. All that matters is now it's kind of a Luke Skywalker thing. He's like, oh, I got to go help my sister. She's trapped. So then a guy shows up and is like, oh, hey, I'll help you. And he's like, who are you? And he's like, oh, that's Heracles. Yeah, he was doing a bunch of trials. And then he realized that was really stupid and dopey, and they were just making fun, and they were taking advantage of him. So now he works for me. So he's like, Heracles will help you. So Heracles is like, yeah, let's go. He's like, all like gung-ho, like, let's go fuck him up. So the merry band of Heracles, they take an army and they charge Olympus using some kind of light-based thunder cannon. They're firing at it that harnesses light and is shooting at them, and they call it a thunder cannon. And before I forget,
light-based
200 hours later.
Yeah, they got a bunch of mirrors and they're charging it up and firing it. But then Zeus has also got one, and his is a lot stronger. So, but they're like artillery. Like I said, he's not doing.
Is it all mirrors?
Lightning.
Is it all mirrors?
Yeah, it's a bunch of mirrors that it's like that. The Archimedes cannon or whatever.
It's
whatever
the Archimedes thing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So they're firing back and forth, and then Arion's army's getting destroyed, and so they're like, we got to get out of here. We got to go around that back way. So him and the general, Heracles, Guido, and Seneca get on this magic winged serpent, and they're flying around, and these things are attacking them, and like everybody gets wiped out except for who's left. So who's left is Heracles, Guido, Seneca, and Arion are the only ones who make it to Mount Olympus. And so they get there, and there's a bunch of Zeus's army, and Heracles is like, don't worry, Guido and I, the Hulk and I, because he basically looks like the Hulk. He's like, Triclops, Hulk, and I will take care of this. You and the kid get in there and fucking kill Zeus. So basically Heracles and Triclops, Hulk are fighting the army. So Arion and Seneca go into the castle, and, he's hacking, slashing his way through everything, and then they come up against a bunch of archers, and they fire a bunch of arrows at them, and Arion deflects a bunch of them and then turns around, and Seneca's been hit with an arrow in the side. And and Seneca's just human. So he's like, oh shit, you're in trouble. So he goes over, he's like, let me look at it.
Well, the fact he's gotten this far with this crowd is still amazing.
Oh yeah. So he's like, let me look at the wound. And Seneca's like, no, I'm fine. Don't bother. And he says, let me look at it. And he pulls Seneca's arm away, at which point you realize Seneca is a female and is in love with him, because then she says, I just wish you'd looked at me like you looked at Resifina. And he's like, no, Resifina's my sister. And the whole time, the reason Seneca's been sticking with him. Oh, yeah.
The soap opera. The soap opera. It just went full soap opera at this moment. This was really the event Soap Horizon.
Oh, yeah, it is. So he's like, all right, you stay here and don't die on me, kid. And then he runs and he's hacking and slashing and he's killing everything. And then he gets into the room with Zeus. And Zeus is like, I gotcha. Kill him, and summons the vengeance furies.
But he didn't actually kill his father, so they can't.
At which point the Black Lion King suddenly materializes and says, stop! He did not kill his father because his father isn't Poseidon. Dun, dun, dun.
It's Darth Vader.
Yeah, and he pulls his mask off, and it's Prometheus. And Prometheus is like, yeah, you thought I was dead, bitch. I'm not dead, and that's my son. And the Furies are like, uh-oh. And so then they kill all the Furies. Like, the Furies get fucking annihilated because now they don't have divine vengeance anymore. So I guess
if they don't have divine right, they're not as powerful, yeah.
Right. So Zeus is like, ah, and runs away and crawls into this cavern. Prometheus and Arion follow him, and he's crawling towards this gigantic woman, and the gigantic woman is Gaia. And Gaia's like, hey, what's up? Poseidon's like, Gaia, you're responsible for this.
Wait, hold on. Poseidon or Zeus?
Sorry, Prometheus. Zeus is basically huddling with Gaia.
Got it.
And Prometheus is pissed off and says,
got it.
You and Uranus conspired to kill Kronos, or the other way around. I can't really remember who's what. But Gaia had sex with her husband, father, or something.
No. So I think the way it goes is that Uranus is the father of Kronos.
Okay.
And then Kronos is the father of Zeus.
Who's Gaia's father?
Gaia is Kronos' mother.
Okay, then they had sex and then had Zeus and then killed Uranus? Is that it?
Yes.
Whatever.
Kronos. Everyone kills their father. So
yes,
Kronos killed Uranus and Zeus killed Kronos.
Right. So that's what Prometheus is like. I need to kill you because this cycle is just not going to stop. And until the humans are freed of the Titans, this shit will never end. And Gaia's like, yeah, bad news for you, because I can't be killed as long as any of my clan are alive. Therefore, I'm immortal, so fuck you. At which point she fires like 80 laser beams into Prometheus and evaporates his ass. So he's dead. So now it's just Arion. And Arion hears Resifina in another room and basically summons her because she hears him, I guess, in trouble. So she suddenly turns into Captain Marvel and starts flying through the castle that they're in and like destroying everything, like Neo in the second movie style.
Did she have any powers before this?
No, but her eyes like turn white, and now she's surrounded by this glow, and she shows up and kills Gaia.
Some weird shit going on here.
Oh yeah, so she flies through Gaia's body like 100 times. Gaia suddenly ages to be 1,000 years old, withers into a little woman, and goes, ah, shit, and dies. And then Resifina like collapses because she's exhausted. So then we see Zeus, who's still alive, and he's like, oh fuck, what am I gonna do now? And then we see Apollo come down. He's walking down the steps. He's like, hey, what's up? You killed your dad, right? Well, guess what? I'm here to do. And he kills Zeus. So he blows Zeus away. And now it's Apollo, Arion, and Resifina. And Apollo's like, look. He's like, give me the girl. He's like, give me the girl, and I'm going to use her power, combine it with mine, and we're going to establish a new ruling class of Titans, but we'll do it differently. We won't be like Zeus. We'll be good guys. And Arion's like, yeah, no. And so they go into some kind of battle zone, like they're flying around, and like Apollo's like,
would you maybe call it a danger zone?
Yeah, you could. Yes. You could call it that. So Apollo's just like, he's running circles around Arion, because he can like phase, and he's shooting light sparkles that look like something Dazzler would be shooting, and he's like trying to talk him into joining him, and then Arion's like, there's no way, I'll never join you, type of shit. And he's like, yeah, but you can't kill me, so what's the point? You'll never be able to stop me. And Arion's like, yeah, the thing you don't understand is that I'm a Titan. And so Apollo fires a light beam at him, and when he does it, Resifina starts falling towards him, but then when he touches her, she erupts in like some kind of super volcanic, magic light, and like evaporates Apollo, and then she flies down. She's
got some crazy powers, man. They really use her as a like MacGuffin power character here, huh?
Yes, well, because she is supposed to be his sister, so I guess the idea is that they're both part or whatever Titan. And so then the end of the movie is like she wakes him up and he sees her and he's like, oh good, we've ended the Titans, and basically now that they're free of the Titans, men can actually have like a peaceful life on Earth, which of course they won't, but essentially they've won. So at the end of the movie, everybody is now dead. As far as everybody, Mount Olympus crumbles, all the gods are dead, and the only people left alive are Arion, Heracles, Triclops Hulk, Resifina, and who am I missing? Seneca. And basically,
Lady
that's
Seneca,
it. So, Lady Seneca. So then you see all this, like there's this like super, light beam thing where all of Mount Olympus is disintegrating, and basically that's the end of the Greek gods. Like they have now been eradicated from the earth.
Basically God of War them. Got it.
Exactly. And so then the movie just ends with the two of them, and they've won, and now the Age of Man, or whatever. I'm trying to remember what the what's the actual. Here it is. Let's see. What does he say? What is the actual wording?
Well, it's basically the Greek version of Ragnarok, isn't it?
Yeah, because basically, that's it. But basically, it's now that you're free of the Titans, you can, oh, that's right. At the very end, after the credits, then you see, and I don't know what this is supposed to mean. You then see Arion and Resifina on a horse that becomes Pegasus, and they fly into the sky, and I guess become a constellation. I guess that's it. But now, basically, the gods have been eradicated, which means that human beings are free to govern themselves, and that's the end of the movie. So it's wild. Because, like I said, it is total soap opera Greek mythology.
I was totally with you, and I was even fine with the peak soap opera moment with Seneca.
Yeah.
But it is weird that they basically the whole movie from the way you explain it, it sounds like Gracefina is like kind of powerless, and then all of a sudden she's fucking Captain Marvel. That's weird.
Well, the thing that I'm not clear on is it is possible that I missed something, because there was at times so much going on in this movie. You know what I mean? Because
it sounds like they tried to shove an entire anime like comic series into a movie.
Yeah, well, and see, I'm curious to read the manga now.
Yeah.
Because I wonder if that is more...
There's more time to explain
fleshed
things.
out? Yeah. Because, okay, here's something. Wait a minute. So this says... now, this is what they must be based on. Despoina and Arion, spelled differently. The search for Persephone carried Demeter far and wide across land. At some point, she found herself in Arcadia in the Peloponnese. Poseidon, the god of the sea, had developed the goddess attempted to flee... Hold on. So, I wonder if she's Poseidon's child. Hold on. Is that what they're saying? Maybe that's what I missed. Okay, hold on. Poseidon changed into a stallion and mated. Hold on. I always do. Oh, with Demeter. Okay, so that's what it is. So, Despoina is Poseidon's child. So she is also half Titan. So that's why she has powers. Why she was silent. So she's based. That's what. So she's his half sister, I guess. Then, basically, yeah. All right. So at least that explains it. I thought there was a reason. It's just like I said. There's parts where there's so much being thrown at you that I got to rewatch it, because I know I missed things. Because I was like, holy. Because like at points where when he starts decapitate or bisects Ares, I was like, fuck. Wow, Ares went down quick, because I expected Ares to be a big fight.
Yeah.
And no, he just hacks his ass in pieces. And then once he's a Titan, it makes more sense, because I always kind of mix up the Titans and the gods and the power levels and all the rest of it, and it's loosey goosey, so you can't really always.
Well, it sounds like they're kind of playing with it to their own devices as well. So.
Yeah, and so as far as why I don't think it's so much that she just is Captain Marvel. I think it's partially because she doesn't know who she is, and everybody treats her like shit. She's basically like a low-level servant, and then Arion is kind to her.
Is this the anger that basically breaks out her power?
I think that's the thing, because he stops and he thanks her, and nobody else talks to her.
Is this like Kid Marvel when he finally turns into Kid Marvel again?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I think that's what it's supposed
everybody.
to be. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like that it's awakening what's in her blood type of thing.
Got it.
So, but like I said, regardless of all that, the visuals it's really, really good. It's like the visuals are great. Because this is mid-'80s Japanese anime, which is kind of my favorite
honestly,
time period.
I saw the animation for it, and it started making me think of like Captain Harkness and... Yes. Okay.
It's got that style to it. It feels a lot like that type. It's exactly that type of thing.
And almost like when you're looking at it, it's not 70s, but there's like this kind of 70s charm to it.
Well, I mean, it probably was being made at the very early part of the 80s. You know how long these take to make.
Oh yeah.
So I'm sure that it was one of the things that was in development for a while. The manga is probably very 70s, I would guess. Ares, has like a bowl haircut and shit like that. So I'm sure that that's what the era was. But like I said, even without the kind of mythology going a little wonky and letting that go, the visuals and the whole way the movie is structured is unlike any version of Greek mythology I've seen. Because, like I said, it plays up the operatic kind of, like telenovela elements of this story, where Arion is like constantly in distress and screaming Recifina's name all the time, and everybody's yelling Arion, like they're all screaming. It's that kind of thing, like almost like Dragon Ball, where everybody has to scream everything.
Well, it's also very Tetsuo and Kaneda. I mean, how often does that happen in that movie? Where they're like Tetsuo, Kaneda.
Oh yeah, yes, that's exactly it. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good because again, it was a version of Greek mythology that was radically different from, and maybe some of it was a little too altered or a little bit, clumsily altered.
It sounds like they had fun with it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, and there's an element of there is almost, if not for the fact that there is so much murder in this thing, you'd almost think it was almost like a safe for kids morning cartoon, the way some of it is.
Oh, well, yeah,
like,
but
there
that
are
was
comedic elements.
always the deceptive quality, right? When you started watching
Yes.
Robotech, and you were like,
Oh,
"Oh,
yeah,
this is
yeah.
a kids' cartoon." You're like, "No, it's not.
Yeah.
No, it's not." I mean,
No,
it's
it
not as
really
bad as
isn't.
other things,
No.
but yeah, it's
But
that
it's
whole.
definitely
It betrays itself to seem like it's more of a kids' cartoon than in reality what it is.
Yeah, but I would, if you have any interest in, like I said, it's an interpretation of Greek mythology through this very specific Japanese filter. And I think it really works. I think it's really interesting. And it just, I had a blast with it because it really, really surprised me. I was not expecting this. I thought it was going to be kind of what I expect most Greek mythology to be. Kind of, Clash of the Titans style. And instead,
and what's funny is
you
that,
know.
and that in itself is its own kind of bastardization of it. You're used to one bastardization of it, so when you actually
Right.
saw a alternate culture's bastardization of it, you're like, oh, interesting.
Yeah,
and like
which
for me,
clearly what they did was they decided that the power elements weren't important. It was the interpersonal drama, and they focused on that with a lot
Yeah.
of sword fighting.
yeah, I mean, like for me now, having learned a lot about the original mythology, I look at all of it now and I'm like, wow, it's all bastardization, and the real mythology is so much weirder,
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's great. It's great to watch to basically see it through a new filter.
And it's that wonderful period of Japanese animation that I'm very partial to.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's all hand done. There's some really almost Ralph Bakshi kind of embellishment where a lot of the times when when a person is meant to be sinister, they're mostly in shadow with no pupils. They just have white eyes. So you see these armies of like dark, white-eyed people on horseback riding. You're like, uh-oh, evil. Like it's that kind of simplicity, that kind of visual. And I like that. I'm a sucker for that. Like when Hades first shows up at the very beginning and Arion sees him, he's this big barrel guy, but his eyes are white. So you know he's scary. Like you just know. It's visually a lot of very obvious, clearly telegraphed visual storytelling. So even if you didn't understand the language, I think this is a movie you could watch. And it's not in English. I only know of it with the subtitles. But if I'd watched this without subtitles, I would more or less know what was... I could probably even know which gods were which. Because, there's one coming from the sea. Well, I would know that's Poseidon. There's Mount Olympus. And Zeus, he's got a big crown on his head. I would have guessed he was Zeus. Hades, once I saw Three Dog Night, then I would know it was Hades. I wouldn't know him by his visual appearance. Prometheus, at one point you see him, the first time you see him, you don't know it's him. He's tied on a rock with a bunch of vultures coming for him. Well, okay.
There you go.
If you know who Prometheus is, you know who this is, right? So the only people I really wouldn't have guessed is Athena doesn't have anything. I don't even think she uses a bow and arrow. So I think she's the only one where I would not have guessed who she was. Apollo I would have figured out because of the light and the yellow eyes. Ares, because he's always angry, I would have guessed. Heracles, probably not. I would have just thought he was a big beefy guy with a helmet. I don't know who Guido is. I guess he's supposed to be a creature, but I don't know what he is. Because he doesn't look like any creature I know of from Greek mythology. He's just a very big, green-skinned, three-eyed brute. I don't know if that is a thing they made up or if that's their version of a Cyclops, but he's got three eyes.
He's got three eyes.
And then I don't know.
Lots of weird shit.
Yeah, Q the Winged Serpent is in there. That's Lycaon's. I don't know who Lycaon is either, but I guess he's got to be somebody too. I don't know that person. I don't know that god or whatever he is. He's unknown to me from Greek mythology, but there's so many that you won't know them all. But like I said, it's a wonderful, if you like anime from this era, it's everything you'll like about it. Plus, it's this new version of something that most of us are at least somewhat familiar with. And I think it's interesting, the stuff they decided to highlight, and I think it works. It is histrionic and way over the top, but it isn't ill-fitting for what the subject matter is. So I really liked it. So I would recommend it to anybody if you have any interest in anime whatsoever, especially from this time period, and you want to see if there's anything comparable to this, by all means, let us know, because I would be very curious if anybody else has done this type of material this way. I have not seen anything like this. The stuff I have seen, as you said, is interpretations that go in different directions, but not this direction. Because this is very telenovela Greek mythology. So I dug it. There's some really great sound effects of the era type stuff. A lot of yelling, good music, great animation. No complaints. So, yes. So, like I said, ties into Megalopolis a little bit in kind of some of the, the mythological conventions. No, Greek, Roman, different, obviously. But there's some... They mentioned... Pandora's in it, too. I forgot. Pandora's at one point shows up. I don't remember what her... I remember them mentioning Pandora, that she's somehow involved, too. I don't remember what, how, but she mentioned... And in Megalopolis, they talk about Pandora at one point. They mentioned the Pandora, and they're like, oh, overlap. So, yeah. So we ended up watching movies that have a lot of mythology to them. In both cases, do new spins on old mythology. So there you go. A wonderful double bill is Arion and Megalopolis. If you really want to put your brain through the fucking ringer,
Jesus,
watch these two.
I don't think
in
I can
either
handle
order.
that gear shift.
I did one night and one the next. And let me tell you, it was something. It was something. So there you have it, everybody.
Do you know what I watched before I came up to watch that with you?
Ooh, what?
I watched Dodgeball with my kids.
Wow, there's a tonal shift.
You went to a tonal shift, yeah. The PG-13 version, not the unrated one. Although, listen,
I was going to say, holy shit, man.
Rip Torn, even in the PG-13 one, has some fucking choice lines. Let me tell you.
I got some hookers in my room. My treat.
So the thing is that my wife does not remember movies, right?
Oh.
But I do. And so we play this game where she's like, we can watch this. And then I'll be like, really? I was like, you don't remember? And then she has like a knee-jerk reaction. So like, I've wanted to watch 13th Warrior for the longest time. But it is rated R. So I accept, a lot of decapitations. But I always say this joke. But she was like, we can watch Dodgeball. That's PG-13. And I was like, do you remember that movie at all? And she's like, no, it's just funny, And our options were that or Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Which I was pulling for Scott Pilgrim. I think that's a really fun movie. Sure. Not that I don't like Dodgeball. It's hilarious. It's just a very different kind of humor. I think a lot of that movie went over my kids' heads. But yes, I watched that and then went up to watch... actually, no, I watched that and then I watched the season finale of SAS Season 2.
Oh,
right,
boy.
where they drop into D-Day. And then I came up to watch... I had like a triple billing that night. And I watched Megalopolis with you. So you want to talk about tonal shift.
Boy, yeah. Yeah.
So.
Well, there you have it. So, yeah, you have a sense of what watching this in Megalopolis will be like.
Yeah, I have some idea, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could go in either order. Like I said, I actually think they would make an interesting double feature. I mean, you're going to have to set aside about 4.5 hours. But they'll make an interesting double feature. So. And like I said, if anybody else knows of a take like this movie, like this version of Greek mythology, I'd be very curious. Outside of the manga, which I understand is the books. But if somebody else has done something... Actually, here's I'm just generally interested in this. If there's somebody who's done a version of Greek mythology that's wildly different than the kind of typical approach to mythological stories, whatever that means for you, by all means, let us know, because I will be happy to watch or read wildly different things. Because I like all the Greek mythology stuff. And based on like how different this was and it still worked, I would be very curious if others have done wildly unique takes that still fit the material.
And what's funny about it is the Greek mythology, when you really start to learn about it, it's so much creepier than you realize. Like I think that for a lot of us, it's been sanitized by like Clash of the Titans. Sure. Right? We have these gods in these white robes and they're playing chess with people and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, but when you start to learn and like you start to realize that, they are not actually called gods in their own time. They're called the deathless ones or whatever it is. And the vicious shit that they do to people along the way, that's just, yeah, it is so much more brutal and creepy. And I'd be curious to see if anybody has gone back to the source material and been like, you know what, I'm going to present this as the creepy thing it is. Because it is... There is almost a horror movie aspect to how much these gods do not give a shit and the way they think of people as pets.
And I was just about to say, this movie does tap into that in that it is very clear that the human beings are simply cannon fodder in their chess game.
Yeah. I mean, like, I love the detail about so everyone knows that Zeus slept with all these humans. Well, I love the idea that a lot of it was Aphrodite basically using her powers to make him do it as a punishment, to be like, oh yeah, fuck you, Zeus, you fuck the pets. Like, you know, and then to some degree Zeus was like kind of ashamed about it, but it also makes sense why in Zeus's mind having sex with a human while in the form of a swan was equal, because in his mind humans and animals were all the same thing.
We're the same thing. Sure.
Exactly. So it's I would love to see somebody do a version of the Greek gods which is as creepy as some of the source material.
And it's very possible it's out there. So if anybody knows of it, let us know. I'm interested. But in the meantime, I would say this is a good one to watch. And Megalopolis. And Rogue Heroes. Shit, another show where I don't think we didn't recommend everything.
No, we didn't bring anything shitty. The only thing that we were on the fence about was Megalopolis, and that pulled through. So yeah.
Yeah. So it's all good stuff again. I think a second week in a row where we said, yeah, everything's good. That's great. Have a great weekend. Enjoy everything. Everything's enjoyable. Have fun. We'll talk to you again next week.
Play it one more time. You got to play it one more time before we go.
All right. 1 second. Here we go. And in closing... Oh, sorry. My volume was off because I've been subtly playing it in the background the entire show. So I'm not counting on those because I lost count. It was Lando's idea. He said you should just play in the background here and there, and I have been doing that. So I have.
Oh, good. I didn't hear it at all.
I did it a couple times when you started talking. I was afraid it would derail you, but you didn't hear it. So
no, that's fantastic. Good job.
I would say I think I played it at least 8 times, if not more.
There you go. So see if you can hear it.
Yeah. But in closing, everybody, have a wonderful weekend, and...
You shut the fuck up!
Visit OzoneNightmare.com to subscribe to new episodes, browse through our back catalog, or to find links to support the show. Follow @OzoneNightmare on Twitter for the latest episode postings and other show information. If 280 characters just isn't enough, you can always email us, theozonenightmare@gmail.com. The opening theme for the show is provided by Heartbeat Hero. The closing theme is provided by Ogre. Please visit and support these artists using the links in the show notes for each episode.